So, hi. I hope everyone can hear me. I'm checking the mic if I can hear myself. Okay, yes, I can. People wondering what the title is about. I'm gonna explain. So, I have heard the sentence, "It is not your place to speak on this and that topic," a lot of times on the web. It's kind of a popular thing that kind of started out in the early branches of feminist movements on the web, and kind of a discourse about Black Lives Matter, I think, and also a bit has been used for speaking about essentially rights and discussions of marginalized groups. And I also have heard it multiple times in cancel culture, video lingo, and under posts concerning those topics. I have read that many times, where people would just essentially tell other people that it's not their place to speak on an issue because of several different reasons. And I wanted to start kind of a discussion and kind of a deep dive. And I wanted to start off this video with essentially me establishing my opinion on the topic right now. And then I wanted to do a bit of research on this to maybe change my mind on this, or to further educate myself on the topic, because I do have some kind of issues with the sentencing and like the sentiment of essentially telling other people to shut the hell up, because I think like it does silence what it can be, like the sentiment can be used to silence other people's voices, and I see it often misused or used as an instrument to further very not good beliefs. Also, why is the trigger warning thing still there? I'm gonna delete that because it's not, no, we don't have this anymore. Trigger warning thing is not active anymore. That was for the last video. I'm so sorry that I accidentally left it up. Okay, so essentially my opinion right now on the issue is you can only talk about things like that in context, and you can also only talk about things like that if you take into account the overall discussion topics, which we don't have currently, which is trying to establish where it's valid to essentially tell other people that it's not their place to speak, and where it probably is misused a lot, so we don't get into confusing territory right here. So a lot of times when discussing topics such as racism, people that are white tend to go into comment sections and be like, "Oh, this isn't racist to me because I don't feel that it is racist." Or people go into a comment section and are like, "This is not Asian fishing to me, for I don't feel that it is Asian fishing." When in fact, that is not your place to speak, because you aren't Asian yourself. So essentially, if there is a debate ongoing, if a sentiment is racist or hurts someone, a lot of times it is pretty valid to tell white people to essentially be quiet about the topic, because it is not like, I'm a white person, so I'm just gonna put this right here, it is not my place and other white people's place to speak on how they feel about the N-word and how they feel about blackface, because essentially, and Asian fishing, because essentially white people aren't hurt or affected by the racist stereotypes behind those sentiments, all right? And this is also the reason why I didn't want to speak on one singular discussion topic concerning the statement, "It is not your place to speak on this," because there are valid ways, like, it's hard to explain. Like, imagine you are an Asian creator and you make a call-out post explaining what Asian fishing is and what it does to you, and then like white people flood the comments and go like, oh, but this is not racist to me. Yeah, of course it is not racist to you. You are an Asian, you're a white person. This is just so weird to me, how people think they can themselves determine if this is okay or not. The same discourse has been going on in Germany with a few words, because we still have a few things in our lingo as well, which are probably not as well known to the communities in the US. There are a few terms concerning indigenous groups which you shouldn't say, and that are basically an equivalent to the N-word. I think there is a term for people of the, what is that region actually called in English? So the Balkan region, I do not know if that is the correct term in English. I just looked it up. And like Germany has a lot of immigrants from the Balkan region, essentially. If we were to look at that concerns those countries, like Serbia, Bulgaria, etc. And there are racist terminologies still used in Germany to talk about people from those countries, which are essentially slurs. And we had political discussions over TV and like overall discourse in our German language about what is okay to say about those groups. And those groups have been pretty offended by a common used term that has been plastered all over the German language, starting with Z. And I'm not gonna go into what kind of term that is. If you're German, you know, and if you're Balkan, you probably know. And it's a racist word, essentially. And it is something that is still written down in like children's literature. And it is also a common name that was used for a lot of, it is used for spices. I think it's also like, I do not know if you, things like that. I do not know how to describe that, but there is a certain spice in Germany that is called like, this one. This one is essentially so weird to me, because this thing is essentially called China. Like, how do you know what China tastes like? That's just weird. So essentially we have an issue like this, just it's called a racist term for people of the Balkan region, all right? And if you aren't a person from the Balkan region, you do not get the right to speak on if that term does offend you. And same goes for the N-word, which you shouldn't say as a white person, because it is a racist term essentially, and you do not have the right to determine if this hurts you or not, because you aren't black yourself. The same goes for ableist lingo a lot of times, and the same goes for slurs of the LGBTQ community. I'm trying to avoid having slurs in this video, of course, but if like a Google image or something shows one, then I am very, very sorry. I do not intend for that to happen. So this video will probably be pretty, I would say, PG, not like my last two videos, which were pretty heavy topics. This will probably not have any triggers. I have to say that, which is, in my opinion, something that is a bit refreshing to hear. But like, essentially, there are things where you just cannot speak upon because you aren't coming from that demographic. And oh my god, my cat. My cat likes to throw his toys at the door to annoy me, and to signal that he wants to go into this room when he isn't allowed to go into this room, but never mind. So I have to look for a second of what he's doing. Also, why is Photoshop open? Cat. Yeah, so my cat wanted some food and I gave him some food. So yeah, we're going back onto topic. So in some scenarios I have found this, but like today I was stumbling upon a TikTok video. Yeah, I know, cringe, but it was essentially, I have to give a bit of context. It was a content creator that essentially said a slur which isn't unanimously seen as a slur. So it's not like the worst kind of slur you could have said, but it is a soft slur, I would call it. And it is a slur that people of concerning community do not always feel as it is a slur. It's one of those controversial slurs. And I do not even know if this is considered a slur. I have been in different communities where it has been seen as a slur and others where it hasn't. And on the topic of if this is a slur or not, this is only a slur if it is used for a certain demographic. And the word we're talking about, so trigger warning, I'm gonna say it, is an F term describing how do you call male to female trans people that are described with that F term, and the word is essentially femboy. So yeah, and while this is a slur to some people, it isn't one to others, so I felt comfortable saying it. I'm also not addressing it to someone, I'm only bringing it up for the sake of discussion right now. And I want to look into if people think that it's a slur, because I do not want to speak over female, I'm stupid, male to female trans people, because the trans community, like I am a transgender, right? But I am female to male, and that means I cannot emphasize well with the other part of the trans community, which are essentially male to female. So I wanted to look into some sources. So we have the topic of discussion here. So if you're triggered by the slur, I am so sorry. I'm not gonna have any other slur in this video except this one, if it is considered a slur, because up to yesterday I didn't even know that male to female trans community would see this as a slur, which is kind of surprising to me because I have researched so much stuff over like literal a decade about the trans community, and I have been in the trans and LGBTQ community for so long, so it's very weird that I haven't heard of this. So okay, I'm gonna read this one. I recently got myself into a deep pile of controversy online for using the term femboy to describe boys in dresses. A trans woman mentioned to me that femboy is a trans slur that only trans women can use as their own word to claim. This was the first time I heard about this, and it was a bit shocking to me since I've been active in femboy communities and spaces for a long time, even experimented with being a femboy a bit. Is femboy really a trans slur used against trans women? Can non-trans women say femboy? Okay, if you have a discussion topic like this, then it is very important to emphasize that the only people explaining a slur are essentially the people that are affected by the slur. So if a white person decides to speak on if the N-word is a slur or not, that is invalid. Essentially only black people are allowed to decide what is an offensive term to them, and so is this one essentially. So this person is essentially like seeing this comment has like 204 upvotes, and this person is also the subreddit is Ask Transgender People, so essentially it is a subreddit where you most likely get answers from trans people as well. I agree with other responses. I don't think it's a slur either. Femboy refers to dudes who are feminine. They aren't women. Maybe you could call that some flavor of trans femininity, but it doesn't belong to trans women. Also, it would be offensive to call a trans woman a femboy since we aren't boys. So this comment sums it up pretty well. If you call someone this slur that is actually a trans woman, then you are using it as a slur. So I think that describes the situation well. Honestly, I see more trans women appropriating femboy, and then I see other people calling trans women femboys. This is just one sentiment there. I do not know if this statement comes from a trans person or not, so I'm gonna keep scrolling. Femboy is just like the opposite of tomboy, right? I do not know, like... Femboy is a category of which some people self-identify as. Basically, we are talking about gender non-conforming boys/men who have a clear slant towards feminine. It's perfectly okay to call someone a femboy if they self-identify as such. Now, for context. I personally cannot identify as this, because I am not that category of trans person, and I'm also not a biological male, which is kind of weird to explain. You have to be really careful and precise with stuff like that. It's okay to use the word... It's not okay... Sorry, I misread. It's not okay to use the verb to describe a trans woman. I fully agree with this, but... it's not my place to speak on this. I want to platform the voices of people that are male to female. That's why I'm making this stream, because I want to platform those people. And a lot of people think if you use this as a slur towards a male to female person, it is obviously a slur. I agree with that sentiment fully. It is not my place to decide that, but I just want to say that I support male to female people, and I do not want to invalidate them, and I do want to give them a platform to show off their opinions, to show essentially that I support their take on it, and to say that I do not like try to undermine what they want to say, but like just show off what they are saying for that. And I'm just gonna read that on the sentiment. Femboy is only a slur if you knowingly refer to trans women as femboy. So if a cis man uses that term to describe themselves, that is something different. And so essentially there was a video on TikTok that I saw with someone using that term to describe themselves, but they weren't male to female, so it's kind of hard. That would be if I, as a white person, would use the N-word to describe myself, which is kind of weird, and you probably shouldn't do it. So the person got hate for that, essentially, and 2 days later they took the video down. It was just like a 10-second clip on TikTok, so it wasn't like any video that was like super long and detailed or stuff. So, but it was a 10-second clip, and it got a lot of hate and flame, and they took it down and they made free apology videos on the topic. And I have to say, the reactions to this were honestly surprisingly disheartening, surprisingly awful, and surprisingly just shitty. So we're gonna close the tabs with the slurs now, and up to this point, and I'm gonna put a short picture because we're gonna take a break right here. This is for me editing in the future, but we're gonna take a break right here because after this small break banner that I'm gonna show on screen in a second, we are not gonna use any kinds of slurs anymore in this video to describe anything. All right? So, and essentially we're back now. I just wanted to put this to get rid of all the slurs or might be offensive terms on screen, essentially, and to have a break so everyone who watches from now on won't be facing any terms anymore that might be offensive. So, all right. So I wanted to explain in that situation, like a content creator online said an offensive word, didn't know that it was an offensive word, and then essentially got cancelled and got flooded with hate for it, and then they very quickly apologized And I read through the apology comments under the apology videos, and literally most of them were really harsh. They were really, really harsh. And by that I mean people were demanding an individual that was open to learning and that already apologized for a minor offense. I'm sorry, for a minor offense. And they demanded that individual that wanted to do better in the future to essentially delete their channel and go off of social media. And then people just essentially are like, only male to female people get to talk about this. And I do not want to talk about if it's okay to use the slur or not. That is not my place to speak on. But where it is my place to speak on is bullying in the cosplay community. And just because you have been personally offended by something, and like that individual in that instance has done everything they can to set the situation right. They have literally done everything they could to set the situation right. They deleted the offensive video, they made 3 apologies, they wrote an extra text for that. Like they literally, and I looked through the apology, so it wasn't like the worst apology ever. It was, to me at least, genuine sounding apology. But what I really don't fucking like is people in the cosplay community being like, oh, you apologized, but I just genuinely hate all of apologies, so I'm just gonna denounce all you say and I'm gonna claim that this apology is dishonest. And it is not my place to speak upon if the slur is accepted. It is not my place to accept the apology. I cannot accept the apology because it is not a situation that is about me, because the slur isn't about me. And this is also something I'm absolutely not gonna do with this video. But what I wanna do is speak upon the consequences that your comments have if you go under videos like this and essentially, like it is one point if you go under a video like this and essentially if you're male to female and you go under a video like this and you are like, I accept or I do not accept your apology. This is okay, this is fine, you can do that. But if you derail your own comment then to go into bullying people in the cosplay community because you do not agree with them, that is something I harshly disagree with. And yes, this is my place to speak upon, and mainly because of the reason that I feel like the situation itself is mostly what discourages people. Imagine being a creator making a mistake. Imagine being a creator making a mistake, and because you made that mistake and you try to fix that mistake, but no one lets you fix your mistake because essentially the people just try to cancel you even more, even though you tried your best to fix it. So after you made your mistake, as PewDiePie would say, after you made an oopsie, people do not give you the chance to fix that. And that's what a lot of content creators get on TikTok, and that's what drives the cosplayers off of that platform, essentially. That is what essentially bullies them off the platform, I would say. Like, you can disagree with someone and you can rationally speak with them. You can tell them using a slur is not okay. And but telling them to delete their channel is shit. Telling them that they should never have a platform and that they should be deplatformed for minor mistake is shit. Bullying them or calling them a slur back is also terrible behavior. Sending them death threats because of this is terrible behavior. Trying to dox them or devalue their own identity as a trans person is also terrible behavior. It's just overall terrible behavior if you think because you have been offended by something that you now have the right to be a horrible person back to them. And I want to speak on this exact subject, not the subject that has nothing to do with me, as using a slur that is not about me, where I do not have a right to speak upon, but I do want to speak upon the topic of reactionism and essentially bullying people off a platform because they did something you didn't like. And I have seen that many times on TikTok and Instagram and sometimes YouTube. I just want to bring up at this point There are also many people in the art community essentially getting hate for things, getting hate for not putting correct trigger warnings, getting hate for using an offensive term. I have seen some controversies with artists using the R slur. I'm not gonna say it, of course. It is a very offensive term and it is very ableist. And while it is not cool to say things like this, if you are affected by that term, if you are a neurodivergent person, I would say, and you are affected by the R slur, and also I fall into that category, so now I can exactly speak on that, but like I do not want to go too deep into it. Essentially, your reaction to this is just as important as the apology of someone. Like, you do not have to accept an apology by default, but you also do not have the right to go out of your way to be really fucking offensive about an apology. Like, we all remember certain big YouTubers that got cancelled over the last, I would say, 5 years because they did some abhorrent shit, which was absolutely valid to cancel them for. And they apologized many, many times. And they apologized so many times that it has actually become, I would say, a meme in the YouTube community where it's just like, haha, funny, because we do not believe your apology at all. Especially if you were to look at the James Charles situation, which is a fucking horrible situation, and I fully stand with the victims. And I just wanted to say that it is very disingenuous of James to make several apologies that are all the same, and in all of them he claims to do better, but then you do not get results. Like, he doesn't do better in the future. He's essentially missing all of his chances, because when he had the first small controversies, people were very quick to forgive him. And after his shitty behavior repeated and repeated and repeated, and he just like apologized and then did it again, apologized, did it again, apologized, did it again. I do understand the growing resentment towards apologies, but you cannot be, first of all, you cannot dismiss an apology by default, and you cannot accept an apology by default. And also, sometimes it isn't your place to accept an apology at all, but your reaction towards an apology is still important. Because if your reaction to an apology is to call the person a liar by default, that is a horrible reaction. And if your reaction to an apology is to try to speak on the subject or forgive a content creator when it is not your place to forgive that content creator, that is also a shitty reaction. And anything that goes into the territory of trying to deplatform a creator for doing like a minor thing, or trying to send them death threats or dox them for doing a minor thing, which is not the James Charles situation right now because he did really big things, but in other instances, a small mistake has bullied creators off a platform. And that's why I just want to say, if you come across an apology, please also think about what you put in the comment section. Is it your place to accept the apology? It is only your place to accept the apology if you have been personally hurt by the things that were said. For the James Charles situation, it would be if you're one of his victims, it is your place to accept apologies or not. If you are a stranger, it is not your place to accept any apology. Like, you haven't been affected by this. He didn't try to get unsolicited nudes out of you. You are a person that doesn't know him. You are not affected by this. The scenario I mentioned before, if a male to female slur was used and you aren't male to female trans, then it is also not your place to accept the apology, or yeah, it is not your place to accept the apology because, well, but if you do not accept an apology and you still go out of your way to dox a person, bully a person, try to get them deplatformed and say fucking horrible and disheartening shit to them in the comment section, when they obviously try to do better in the future, then that irks me the wrong way. That is also not morally okay. Like, the person doing a bad thing is, that is a shitty occurrence, okay? But like, you also doing a bad thing in response to that is also a shitty occurrence. That's what I want to say with this. And now I really want to talk about that. It's not your place to speak on this sentiment, because while I have discussed my own opinions and where I think it's valid, I want to look into what other people think as well and what some sources think of this. So, first we're going to look into the very classic take: white people need to be listening to black activists, and white people need to stop silencing black voices. So, white people need to be listening to black activists, not talking over them. In my attempts for videos like this, I always try to give people that get silenced a lot a platform to showcase their opinions. And if someone of those communities wants to collab with me in the future to have a space to openly talk about things like this without being silenced by shitty white people going into the comment section and talking over you, then you are very free to do so. And I would be very open to that, because I truly do not want to silence any kind of marginalized group or any kind of group in general. White people need to be listening to black activists, not talking over them. This is a sentiment I fully agree with. So let's read up on this. So I think this sums it up pretty well. For even the wokest among us, white and non-black individuals will never understand the experience of being black in this country. I think they are probably referring to America, but I think it's not only in America. It's just like, if you aren't that skin color or that race, you will not understand what it is like to be that race. You just won't. And at the protest, the only way I could express my support was through listening. But my forced silence was the most important thing I've learned in the process of improving my allyship. I think that does sound kind of weird to me, but like, I probably... It is very hard for allies to react on things like that. So it's time for white people to start talking less and listening more. To be clear, staying quiet doesn't mean staying silent. It means the white people need to amplify black voices instead of just sharing their own. Exactly. This is something I fully stand with, and if I get to hear, like, this article is probably written by a white person, but if I get to see anything written by a black person, I'm platforming them on my channel to amplify their voices, essentially. In doing this, it's crucial to understand the differences between performative allyship and actual solidarity. Performative allyship is exactly what it sounds like: shallow actions that only superficially display your support for a movement. It's showing off your own wokeness in the expense of taking part in the difficult, often more uncomfortable work of being a stronger ally. One example arising from performative allyship was the Blackout Tuesday campaign. The intention was for people to post black squares on Instagram in support of, but it quickly became a counterproductive and ultimately hollow form of activism. After countless black squares started appearing on social media, black activists quickly pointed out that they were blocking out resources for activists and information about protests, ultimately doing more harm than good. Yeah. And this is something I feel very comfortable learning, because I did not know this. I didn't know that the Black Square campaign on Instagram was actually hurting black activists. But then again, this article is written by a white person, so a white person right now just claims to say that black activists say that. So I do not know the sourcing of this. White people also need to understand that the onus, I do not know that word, to learn about racial issues is on them, not black people. Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do with this exact video. I'm trying to have a discussion about that topic and to kind of dive into it a bit and to kind of learn about this and maybe in the end change my mind on something. Yeah. It is not the role of the oppressed to teach the oppressor. With infinite resources available, and those are the resources I'm going through right now. Like, if a black person wants to go on my channel and actually educate me, I would be very fucking open to that. Please do that. But I do not want to force anyone of the black community to go out of their way to teach me something. I'm not the weirdo to go up to disabled or black people and treat them like a learning opportunity, because they aren't. They are just like fucking people minding their own business. But if someone offers those resources, they are free on the web. I'm just gonna point that out. So yeah, I want to read through those resources a lot. And I also want to say that goes the same way for me as a trans person. So as a trans person, I often have people around me being very ignorant and trying to talk over me, essentially. And also being like, oh, why do I have to be complicit with your ideology? And I'm just like, I'm the oppressed group. I have very harsh mental troubles. I go through a lot of suffering already. And now you want me on my classic Tuesday morning, or what kind of thing do we have? I think it's Saturday. Yeah, it's Saturday. On my classic Saturday afternoon, you want me to go out of my way to explain racial discourse to you, when I might be fucking tired and do something else. But like, this stream especially is for discussing this topic, so of course this stream is for learning and discussing. But if I'm just hanging out casually with friends and someone's going to be fucking annoying with this kind of shit, there's often gonna be times where I'm really tired of explaining stuff. And I get that people from the people of color community, or people that are people of color essentially, face the same trouble. Like, imagine just being a black person wanting to live, and then people constantly treat you as like a fucking walking dictionary that has to explain black issues to you. Like, no, you're just a person. If you want to explain black issues and you want to speak out about those things, and you are constantly open to that, that is also fine. Like, both are valid. But if you as a white person pressure black people to essentially lecture you or annoy them and like try to be some kind of submissive weirdo towards them, that is very uncomfortable in normal just like living space. But I can only speak about how I feel about this as a trans person. When someone does this with trans issues towards me, I do not know if like black people fully feel about this. This is just what I read on the web essentially. Okay. It's understandably difficult to avoid vocalizing your thoughts and feelings during this time. I get that. I am a white person writing a column on how to improve allyship and solidarity on the issue that has never personally harmed me. Yeah, this is the sentiment I'm getting out of this. This is exactly what the title is about. It is not your place to speak on this, but it is your place to educate yourself on the subject, and that is what I'm trying to do with this channel. Yeah, but a crucial part of dismantling racially oppressive systems and the uncomfortable realization that white people are not the center of attention in this conversation. Exactly, they aren't. And the center of attention is always, in discourse like this, is always the oppressed group, essentially. And not the oppressors that try to go into comment sections and be like, I'm a white person, but I don't think this is Asian fishing. Like, it is not your place to fucking speak. Rather than contribute your own thoughts, it's imperative to share the voices of those who feel the direct pain and suffering of generations of oppression. Yes, thank you. Instead of posting black squares on your Instagram feed, follow black influencers who share the same creative passions as you. This is what I do. This is what I do so much, and I don't want to boast myself. I fucking hate if people do that, but like, I try to be an ally, as at least in the cosplay and fashion community, where I have seen that the algorithm purposefully just gives me a lot of white people suggestions. So if I find, I recently had a discussion with someone who also wants to support marginalized groups, and we shared our favorite cosplayers from the Black community and people of color communities, and that was really refreshing to do because finally I can see some new people on my feed and support their cosplay and their hobby, which is in the same branch as me, which I want to amplify as a white person essentially. Instead of writing lengthy Facebook posts exalting your support for Black Lives Matter, read books by Black writers which explain the deeply rooted oppression that has led up to today's reckoning. This is also something I can highly recommend you do, especially if you are from the US of A. I have also seen a lot of Black content creators going out of their way to talk about older literature, and it is very crucial that they do because throughout the history of the US of A there has been a lot of silencing of Black voices and people of color voices, where there was actually literature, also psychological literature, I just want to point this out, and also psychological literature about people from the LGBTQ community that completely misrepresents them and just like portrays them as a sex-craved fetishist or some kind of bullshit rhetoric, when in reality those people are completely not like this. And the same goes for the history of slavery and the oppression of Black people in the US of A, where people essentially wrote literature and books misrepresenting stuff like this a lot. And it is very important, and maybe I'm even going to share a few resources at the end of this video, that Black creators correct those sentiments. And to me it is also fucking sad that they have to do that, because that just means that over decades your community has been shitted on, and now it is not like the oppressors correcting themselves and going out and saying, oh well, but we wrote shitty literature, here's the correction, but like the victims having to fix it again, which is also a strong sentiment I felt in therapy, when a lot of therapy methods would just go into victim blaming me for essentially the stuff that happened to me, which is like one of the shittiest feelings that I have a lot of times. And Kitty! Meow. Meow. Sorry for interrupting, my cat was entering the room. But yeah. Instead of sharing dainty artwork from white creators, search for educational graphics from Black creators that will inform your audience. Which I do a lot. I love doing that. I love sharing that stuff. If I find something that is helpful from that communities, I share it from that communities, and I get my resources from those communities. And I do not like it if white people make up shit like this. Like, that's not your place to speak. Again, going back to discussion topic. Even if they actively fight against racist power structures in this country, white people unwittingly contribute to them if they speak over those who they wish to stand with. White people's perspective on racism can't come before the voices of Black people who live through it every day, and also other people of color, and also the discrimination, which is not like the same thing as racism, but discrimination towards LGBTQ people works essentially in the same way. LGBTQ folks say one thing and then straight people come and make it all about them. I just want to say that shitty thing that happened, like straight lives matter and straight pride and shit like that, which is, you do not deserve a medal for being straight. You are the default. You are the oppressor. You do not deserve a medal for that. I'm sorry. So, and we're gonna take a short break again, where I wanted to put some food into the oven and actually look after my cat a bit again. So yeah, we're gonna be right back on stream. Angel, please, can I kiss you and hold you? Because you are one, Angel. Alrighty, and we are back on stream. And we just finished this article, so I'm gonna close it. I'm just looking if this is relevant to the discussion topic. Yeah, when the truth is held up, it reflects the false insecurities our society rests on. That is often the case for marginalized groups. So I think this article is actually written by a black person. I want to look into that if it is, because yeah, it probably is. That looks like a black person to me. We're going to look into if this article is written by a black person, because that's important to me. Yeah, so she pretty much looks like a black person. I just want to make that sure that if I'm sourcing stuff about racism, that it is actually written by the people that are affected by the racism. And the last article we looked into wasn't. It was about allyship, which is not as important to listen to. Sorry to say that. Sorry, allies. I do not want to be offensive. It is just like the uncomfortable truth. But like, yeah. When white people are uncomfortable, black people are silenced. Social media makes it easy for those who don't want to hear the truth, by Rachel Elizabeth Cargill. And in 1962, this woman was fired from her job after she campaigned to encourage African Americans to vote. Oof. 2 years later, when Hamer testified at the DNC in support of the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, specifically its effort to further black voter registration, President Johnson called an impromptu news conference to make it impossible for national television networks to cover her testimony live. That is just some of the oppression marginalized groups face. And now imagine being on social media. Imagine being a trans creator or a person of color, or even both, on social media, and you talk about a subject that really hurts your community, and then people just go into the comment section and are like, I do not agree with you. I'm not of your community, but I do not agree with you. This is just so ridiculous to me. And I also had that happen to me, where people try to discredit my mental disorders just by just off the basis of, I think you are lying, which is like the worst possible basis you can have for anything, right? Like just going up to a person and having the audacity to claim that their experiences are invalid when you aren't that person and you aren't of a similar group to that person, then like just shut the hell up, I would say. Just like, this is so painful to read about the black community. This is so painful to read. I mean, it was in 1962, and I hope things got better for them, but there's still things happening like this today. So, this type of silencing used generation after generation against marginalized voices is nothing new. For decades, it has ensured America never had to face a hard truth, and its foundations, its very roots are racist. Which is true. I'm sorry, USA. And I can say the same thing about my country, since I am from Germany, and I do not have to go into detail on why there is discriminatory and xenophobic and also kind of racist shit happening in Germany, and how our roots and a lot of our social structures are based on those things. And it is very important to break these patterns. Oh god, I cannot talk. To break these patterns and to look out in the future to not repeat racist shit again, which I fully stand with, of course. And today, threats like doxing, reporting of work, white gatekeeping, oh, I hate when people do that so much, are common tactics used to silence those who speak the truth. Honestly, I'm so ashamed, since I'm a white person, I'm so ashamed of other white people going into comment sections and talking over people of color. I have seen this a lot with the discussion of Asian fishing, right? Because Asian fishing is happening and the Asian community is hurt by that. And especially if you look back into old movies where they would essentially not cast actors of a certain race just to have a white person and then paint them to look that race. That is just peak racism right there. That is just absolute peak racism right there. And that is a form of white gatekeeping as well. When white people just are like, oh, I'm just gonna boot off all those people that are people of color and then just paint a white person as, oh my god, that is just so racist. I hate when that happens. It makes me feel so ashamed of white people in general. It makes me feel very bad about like our roots, and it makes me feel very motivated not to repeat that stuff again in the future. It happened to the black man who took knee to the NFL games to protest killing of black bodies at the hands of the police force. It happened to Black Lives Matter activists who are censored by social media I cannot read, I'm so sorry. It happened to the black man who took a knee in the NFL games. I hated that happened. It happened to Black Lives Matter activists who are censored by social media algorithms that protect white men. Yes, I hate it. It happens to women of color representatives in our own government. Yes, I hate it. Last year, during the Senate Intelligence Committee hearing of Jeff Sessions, Senator Kamala Harris was the only senator to be reprimanded by her male colleagues for asking pertinent questions. Oof. And that also happened to a person of color in the situation with the Blizzard lawsuit. I just want to bring that up. It also happened to someone in the Blizzard lawsuit situation. They were a person of color and they had to do extra reporting and extra work on when they wanted to take a day off. They had to write extra reports just for justifying that they would want to take a day off, which is just peak racism to me. And as a trans person, I have experienced that shit myself. I have experienced the discrimination the LGBTQ community faces. It is not the same as people of color, but I want to go into both topics in this video, so yeah. I do not know what racism feels like because I'm white, but I do know what discrimination feels like, and it is pretty fucking shit to just like stand there in an office and have people talk over you and be like, yeah, you are not worth as much as we because we are cis people. And then the same people go out of the way and like put up flags and shit on like trans pride related days of the year, which is just very cringy and hypocritical to me. Also, I'm gonna read the chat for a second. Celestia Ludenberg, I love your username, says, I hate people trying to act like they're educated on something. Like people will say people who are transgender don't exist even though the science is against them. Which is absolutely correct, thank you. As a trans person, I have researched so much about anything related to how I'm gonna proceed with my transitioning process. And I have to say, it is easily done by science to make people look like their preferred gender. This is something that is easily done. You can look up pictures of creators or other people posting them on subreddits about this topic of fully transitioned trans people that just normally assimilate with society. If you have done your full transition process, you will blend in as your preferred gender pretty fucking well. So people going like, this is not possible, you have to be like your birth gender for all eternity and you will suffer and shit like that. That is just wrong. Like, it is very much possible for science to help people that are transgender to achieve looking like their preferred gender. Also, sorry, that is just a memo for me that like my food is done, where I'm gonna take a break in a few seconds. And also, science highly suggests that there are more than 2 genders. If we want to go into that debate, I have a lot of stupid cis people that aren't well educated, that just like went to school for like the first 10 years of their life, and then they were like, okay, I learned that there are men and women. And then people also pull up that shit about chromosomes, and that there's like testosterone levels and shit that essentially try to prove that there is a scientific backing that there's only 2 genders, when there is so many backing of any scientific literature that just proves that there is definitely more than 1 gender, and that gender is definitely not a binary, and definitely more of like, what is the different word that is not a binary? Definitely more of a spectrum, right? That's the word I'm looking for. And a spectrum is also kind of a weird term, but like, as someone pointed out in the comments, clownfish literally go from male to female in nature. Clownfish aren't the only animals that happens to, and also homosexual behavior in animals is also pretty well documented and is also seen as pretty normal. Animals engage in LGBTQ relationships, and if you don't believe me, you can look that up for yourself. But at this point, I just wanna, if there's any hate boiling up, I just want to dim that down, and I just want to bring up one of my past videos that I made. And in those videos, I was talking about scientific erasure and scientific bias. Because back in the day, all fields of like documentaries were controlled by the groups that essentially form the majority. And those groups are straight white people, essentially. And those people, essentially in many scientific fields, would not want to film animals engaging in gay behavior and then pulling it up on a big screen on cinema, because Christian people and white conservatives would have bashed those people, and those documentaries would not have been published. I just want to bring that up for anyone that goes into, I'm going to reference a documentary now, because I just want to say, first of all, there are many newer documentaries that portray those things more accurately. And if you reference something that is older than 1980s, you will probably have scientific bias, because all things scientific are funded by someone. And the people funding those are the people in power, and the people in power are white cis people, and mostly men. And those people have a bias. A lot of them have like a religious and conservative bias as well. So if you were out in the field filming penguins or some shit, and like essentially documenting how they socialize, and you see them socializing also gaily, because penguins do, and lions as well, and a lot of animal species, just a lot of casual animal species that are very up to human standard, because people always tend to be like, oh, the clownfish argument is shitty because clownfish and humans are so unalike. Yeah, but mammals also are very much LGBTQ. I'm sorry to say this. This is just like, people accuse me of having a bias because I'm LGBTQ, but you have to also know that there has been a prior bias, and that bias was established by the people in power, which are white and cis. And those people would have not funded a documentary of gay penguins. So stuff about gay penguins is probably pretty new. And if you look way back into when we didn't have Christianity and when we didn't have conservative relationships, if you look into other cultures, then you can, if you go like way back, I talk about the Romans, and I talk about other indigenous cultures, then you can also find strong traces for humans engaging in LGBTQ relationships, and humans engaging in any kind of out of the binary working gender norms. There are a lot of indigenous folks that have been growing up way not included in white power structures, and those cultures have a lot of emphasis towards having people that are non-binary, for example, like maybe they don't use the word non-binary or as an identificator or a label, but like there are people like this in indigenous cultures. I just want to say this. So if someone is going around claiming that science is backing up the theory of having only two genders, it is not. Your white, limited believing science that has been essentially policed, this kind of science may be backing up those theories. Your conservative, biased science backs up those theories. But there are a lot of other science and a lot of other well-documented scientific documents from all over the world, from all cultures, from all kinds of researchers, because there are, of course, also some researchers that aren't funded by white men. And if you were to look at those sources as well and don't just exclude them, you can find pretty much a lot of evidence that a lot of animal groups have strong LGBTQ tendencies with lesbian relationships, homosexual relationships, polyamory, any kind of that sort. And also there are a lot of different family structures where male penguins take care of children, relationships with age gaps, relationships with more than one parent, with more than two parents, but like this exists, and people claiming it does not exist base their shitty takes on very whitewashed scientific literature, which does exist and which is pretty fucking racist. And I know that because of my German heritage, because the Nazi regime essentially tried to eradicate everything that didn't fit their narrative, and they would only pay people and have them make scientific backings of stuff that essentially agreed with what Nazis wanted them to, right? And the same thing happened in like the USA, where white people are in power and have been for several decades, if not hundreds of years, and those white people oppressed other groups, and those white people oppressed their living norms, and those white people try to determine what is normal, and by doing so they initially silenced, suppressed, and censored anything in any kind of area, in social studies, in science, in any kind of relations. They try to silence this kind of stuff, which is pretty fucking bad. I'm not gonna look my sourcing up on this video. This is a discussion topic for another video, but if you are interested in that, I do have a video up on my channel where I discuss Nazis doing that, because I'm German and I can only speak on like German issues. So yeah, and I'm gonna read the chat. They also say stuff like trans and non-binary doesn't exist back then, but that was because people didn't study gender sexuality. Yes, and they didn't study gender sexuality because there's basically no one paying for that shit back in the day, because like racist white people. Didn't scientists try to hide that penguins had homosexual relationships for? Yes, they did. They fully did, and they did try to pass this off as something that was out of the ordinary, and that the relationships that penguins had that were non-heteronormative were only like something that would happen very seldomly, and that like homosexual penguins weren't the norm, when in fact homosexual penguins are something that happens just as much as like heterosexual penguins, if you can even call them that, because the relationships penguins have are very wild. There's also a very sweet documentary, I do not know the name, of a very young penguin father that gets together with a very old penguin mother, and they both adopt another penguin child, because the dad had a kid and it died, and the mother had a kid and it died, and they basically also lost their partners both, so they decided to combine their relationship and get into a relationship, and then they adopted a penguin child into their care, whose parents passed away. So essentially you have three parties that aren't biologically related, and they decided to form a family structure together. And if you're trying to tell me that this is not absolutely LGBTQ and out of the heteronormative norm that people would like you to believe it is, yes. Also, Celestia Ludenberg in the chat, if you were to check out the Nazi-related video, please make sure to listen to the beginning where I put up trigger warnings for that video, because it has some triggering imagery and topics that I'm addressing, of course, since it is related to Nazi structure, essentially, which is very triggering as a subject in itself. And it is also a reaction video to something another content creator did. So yeah. be sure to be aware of that. I just want to make sure that I don't send anyone into like anything that triggers them. Also, I'm gonna read the chat again. Correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of cultures that actually were cool with homosexual and transgenderism were changed because of colonization. I probably will have to fact check that though. Yes, colonization, of course, and also just like white literature oppressing their literature. Like, if you do not know, a lot of this is a common practice that happened all over Europe, but in Europe we had a tendency as Christians to burn down all other literature. There was a period in Christianity where they didn't like Roman literature, so they just outlawed it all throughout Europe and collected all the books and essentially burned them. And a lot of sources from back in the day are still lost to this day, and we can only have them because people of color from other countries that are way off of Europe collected those books and essentially preserved them. While if you were to take one of those books to Europe, it would have been confiscated and then destroyed. And the same thing happened to a lot of heritage of native folks. I have seen a TikTok about throat singing, which is a singing practice practiced by an indigenous culture. I do not know which one. I could look it up. I can look it up. Yeah, I think Mongolians practice that, and throat singing is just something that white people didn't like back in the day, so they forbade cultures that essentially practice this sort of singing to just not do it. They essentially censored them and forbade them from doing something that is very natural to their culture, to make their culture more heteronormative and more controlled by cis white people. And the same thing happened to people living in slavery conditions as well, because, like, of course it did. Yeah. Back onto topic. Sorry, we went off topic. I'm always addressing the things that happen in chat. So if the chat has something urgent to say, I will always address that. Also, I do have to check out the oven for a second because it has my food. I do not want it to get burnt. So I'm gonna be back in a second. But you can look at the screen and maybe read through the article for like several seconds until I'm back. It's just like 1 minute. Alright, so I'm back. The chat says nice art. I do not know what you're referring to, but I am guessing you mean like the little drawing of my OC. It is listed in the description. If you want to see my art account, you can look at my art. And yeah, so the stream is already pretty long. I'm planning to not go over 2.5 hours. So we're gonna look up this one. Do you sound gay? What your voice tells us and what they don't. What? Here's what a good LGBTQ plus ally looks like. I really want to know what a good LGBTQ ally looks like, since I'm also since I'm trans, and I really want to know what Vox thinks what an ally looks like. Oh my god. So I started off the stream with a few claims, and it turned out into something completely different. I just want to acknowledge that right here. Sent the right yeah, we're gonna, like, now the stream topic has just went into the territory of allyship, which is cool. I made this to be a discussion based and like discovery based stream where we try to learn. So yeah, what's worse is the Bible that has been translated and mistranslated many times. Some even say that the Bible never mentions homosexuals but talks about pedophilia. Yes, true. I actually also am very, very interested in Christianity. I grew up semi-Christian. Part of my family was Christian, and I went to anything related to Christianity in my school. But I wasn't the strongest believer, and I wasn't growing up in a cult. But I graduated actually in Catholic Christian things, which is like a school subject we do have. And talking about Christianity would probably be also a video topics I'm going to cover in the future when I find something that I can speak upon. But it is probably not going to be heavily featured in this video, because this is about what it's like for me to be part of the LGBTQ community and to have people constantly talk over you, and also people misusing the argumentative take of it is not your place to speak on this, and also platforming black voices that I find on the web and to show them off what they think. Here's what a good LGBTQ ally looks like. I really want to know. A good ally offers financial support. Why is this funny to me? Why is this funny to me? That is like, I am trans, give me your cash. I'm sorry for making a joke. It is cool if you donate to trans funds, because in a lot of countries surgeries aren't for free and trans people do need the resources. So yeah. Uplift the most marginalized in the community. Yes, this is something I'm trying to do with my channel as well. So yeah, a good LGBTQ ally understands how to lift up and not just queer voices but also black voices. True, this is why we were diving into the subject of black people speaking on that topic prior. Queer sex workers' voices, impoverished trans people's voices, among other identities. Yes, thank you, Vox. Yet the biggest companies, corporations and celebrities rarely acknowledge their struggles. I am very glad that a lot of celebrity voices have come out about being gay over the last decade. I'm very happy that celebrities are also not as essentially very big celebrities are not as pressured to stay away from the gay. TM. As someone of the LGBTQ community, I fully support Black Lives Matter. I just want to put this out there. And the Black community is very much also part of the LGBTQ community. That's why there's also an LGBTQ flag containing colors of the Black community, which is also a point of discussion for many people from the LGBTQ community. So, I think a lot of people lose sight of the fact that a lot of people of color are more likely to identify as queer than whites. Yes, so that's probably why. But I do not know if this is an accurate representation of the actuality of things that are happening. But I can think that this is probably true, but I do not know that, and I cannot fact check it really, because like you would have to pull up studies for that and look into those. And also this, the epidemic of Black trans women being murdered. Imagine just existing and going on the street, or being fucking afraid to go on the street, but you have to because you want to go grocery shopping, and then like a fucking person just like murders you because you exist. Like, that's a reality for Black trans people. And that's one of the fucking most disgusting things that happens on this entire planet, in my opinion. I really fucking hate that that is happening. And I really hope that this is getting better and better over the next, I'd say, plus 10 years at least. And not like worse and worse. And the criminalization of sex work targets trans and queer people, and the all too routine issues of poverty and homelessness affecting queer people. Why does poverty and homelessness affect queer people so much? That is easy. If you come out as queer, there's a high possibility your family does not support you anymore. If you come out as trans, there's a high possibility people just go like, okay, you can leave the household now. Just bye forever. I don't care if you are my child. I do not love you anymore. Goodbye because you're trans. Which is also something that trans people are very fucking afraid of, and that's why they do not come out of the closet towards their family a lot of times. Understand the adversity LGBTQ people face. To be a good ally, it's important to understand how LGBTQ people's gender identity and sexuality exist in relation to other social issues. Yes, please. Please understand. They also face an overwhelming amount of workplace discrimination. Are more likely to report being fired from a job or denied a position compared to their straight counterparts. Yes, I have to say yes, and I know that from like, just like experience. The job world is really, you have to be professional looking. You cannot have piercings and blue hair. You cannot wear an LGBTQ flag on this. We can only do this in one specific month where the company allows us to do so. This is particularly true in red states. But I also have to say I spoke to Americans personally that mentioned that the red states also have sometimes big cities with counteracting cultures towards this sentiment. And blue states also can have cesspools of LGBTQ phobia, of course. LGBTQ people can be fired, denied housing, denied services, and face a whole host of other discrimination without legal recourse. Yes, sadly. Sadly, yes. Also, I'm sorry for eating on stream. I hope this doesn't bother people, but like I do that because if I have a sense of community, it's very much easier to overcome my psychological struggles and actually eat something. So that's why I'm kind of doing that. Allies can also be turning out to rallies, marches, turning out to their capital and city hall to talk with representatives to demand support around bills that center sex workers and all of the other intersections that I mentioned. Which would be good if like allies would do that more. I think allies should speak up more about actually trying to implement and actually voting for laws that make it easier to live for any LGBTQ folks. Make room for LGBTQ people to exist. Yes, please. Means supporting the community's artists, which I fully do. And if you want to, I do have a TikTok and a social media where I oftentimes post works of essentially Black and LGBTQ people. A lot of my friends are also from the LGBTQ community, and I support those artists a lot, and I support their work a lot. And there are some fucking gorgeous individuals that do fucking gorgeous stuff, especially in the cosplay community. There are some very, very underrated Black creators. And I recently saw a post from a Black creator in the alternative fashion community, because I love alternative fashion. And that creator was called the Black Billie Eilish, which is just some kind of weirdness to me. Also my cat. Kitty, you're not allowed to sit there. Come on. No, no. Come on. I sometimes let my cat in the room even if he's not supposed to be in here, because he just not likes to be alone. Yes, you do not like to be alone. But you have to before I stay now. You have to. The only person I've come, sorry, I'm reading the chat. The only person I've come out to is my sister, and on that day I found out she was bi. I want to support more LGBTQ plus artists and try to find spaces where I can feel safe and accepted. First of all, my TikTok is a safe space, and my YouTube is a safe space, and of course all my other social media is a safe space for LGBTQ plus people. And if you want to see some Black artists and LGBTQ plus artists, I frequently share them on my story, especially if they have a smaller following. And I fully support them. And if you want to, if you are interested in Instagram artists and like TikTok, I can message you with suggestions for cosplayers that are people of color and cosplayers that are trans, and also the same goes for like artists on Instagram. If you want to, you can look into the description of this live stream essentially and find out all my socials, and then just message me there and I can give you recommendations if you want to see people like that. Some more, I would say. Maybe you can find something that you do not know about. But I do not know what type of art you like and what type of art you support. So if you're into cosplay, or since I can read that your username is Celestia Ludenberg, I suggest that you are, I can think that you are into Danganronpa probably. So I follow so many Danganronpa cosplayers and artists, if you want something from that kind of category. And some of them are, I can also share a lot of them that are actually people of color and that are actually Black. And I really hate that especially cosplayers and artists get bullied just for being LGBTQ or just for being black in general. So if I see any kind of shit like that going down, like, people can just go to my channel and hide there, because honestly, I'm gonna delete all this shit if I see people hating on anything related to the LGBTQ community or black community. I'm gonna delete those comments because I want my channel to be a safe space for that. Except if people try to hate on me, then most of the time I'm just like, oh, okay. But like, just people posting slur comments is just something that is so annoying, and I think black people do not need to see this, so I as a white person just go around and monitor that on my channels, so black people do not have to see that kind of bullshit. And if I get DMs of people being weird about this kind of stuff, I already block them, so they cannot access my channel and post like disgusting content. And I do have a cosplayer friend that is LGBTQ, and she has been very afraid to post because she was getting hate on TikTok just for existing. And then I talked to her for weeks and weeks, encouraging her to post something, and then she posted all of her cosplays and stuff she worked on so much, and then she posted it, and then the first thing she got was a fucking pro shipper that ships Sebastiel going under her comment section, just commenting, oh, I think you look a little ugly. Like, shut up. This is the reason why people do not post. Imagine being scared to post for weeks because of bullying, and then you finally build up the courage to post, and then you post, and then someone is being like this. This infuriates me. This infuriates me so much, and this is why my channels are mostly a safe space. So if I see shitty comments like that, I will delete them. If I see transphobic stuff, I will delete it. And if you see some transphobic or ableist or any kind of shit in my comment section, feel free to just tag me so I can delete it. Because I do not think that it is valid criticism to go under a person's post and just comment, you are ugly, or I hate LGBTQ people, or I hate people that are black, or some kind of shit. Or the worst thing personally is people going under people of colors cosplay and just going like, you can't cosplay that character isn't black. Yeah, do we have to start the argument again? Because if I hear that, I really get angry, because that is just uneducated white people most of the time. And sometimes it even comes from black people, which breaks my heart, because they have been indoctrinated by white culture, essentially. Because white culture controls the media, essentially. And because they control the media, they can mostly decide that most characters in popular TV shows are modeled after them, which are white people. And that means a lot of anime and characters from those cultures are whitewashed or are very light-skinned. Yeah, and that's why there aren't so many black people that black people can actually choose from to cosplay in the first place. And if you are a black person that wants to cosplay a character, you can't just fucking whitewash yourself. You are black because you are black. Because that's what you're born as. And there is no point in you trying to look lighter. There's also a movement of people of color hating on filters, which they should, because there are a lot of filters that essentially just work for white skin, and if you apply that as a black person, it whitewashes you, which is some kind of fucking bullshit that happens. Imagine, like, you just wanting to have a filter that, like, clears your skin, but all it does is just like whitewash your skin to make it like 3 shades lighter, which is just implicit racism in my opinion. Like, there are filters that black people cannot even use. Just like a filter. That is something so basic in my opinion. So, for a lot of us, monetary support is what's most immediately important. Buying books and signs by queer and trans authors helps to educate yourself and contribute to the well-being of writers who need their work to sell, so that they can keep making a living. Imagine this. Imagine being a dark-skinned person or an LGBTQ person, and like big companies that essentially are very white rule the world. That means in order for you to make a character, even if you get into a company like, let's say Disney or DreamWorks or Warner Bros. Or anything, like if you get into a company like that, you will still be inclined to write very white characters. That's why we don't have enough black representation in very big media. And that's why small creators have to do that on the sidelines. They have to do that outside of big companies, because big companies usually do not support having a lot of people of color and LGBTQ based characters. And if they do, it's often queer baiting. Yeah. Disney just decided like this year to allow the characters in Owl House to actually be LGBTQ. And before that, like the author of the show literally had to fight for the right to make the characters like she wants the characters to be. So even if you are LGBTQ and you get into a big company, there is a high possibility you will have to, in quotation marks, adhere to company standards, which are often just do what white people say and what white people like, because this is the demographic that watches it. Like, no, black people also watch that. Do you know how many black people and how many LGBTQ people relate to characters that just give them the glimpse of the hope of being maybe part of their community? Like, do you know how many people were so happy about the update in Pokemon where you could actually choose skin color? Imagine being a black person in the 90s, essentially growing up and having to see that in video games you can start the game off and all the default settings of characters you can choose are white. Like, that must suck. That must suck real bad. And that was also the case for Animal Crossing, also a very big franchise by Nintendo, a very fucking big company. Oh yeah, the chat also says some people will crap on people because people will headcanon characters anything but straight. Yeah, also people headcanon characters as trans. And I have seen people that get really fucking weird about headcanons. Like, headcanons are just your personal opinions and ideas you have about a character. You're free to have them however you please, honestly. Identify existing resources, providers, and other rural-based spaces to support and affirm LGBTQ people. I have to say this one is pretty fucking hard. As an LGBTQ person, I firmly cannot, like, I'm 24, okay? I'm pretty fucking old, so I have done research on those topics for a long, long time, and I have been in the community for a long, long time. I have been to many parades and stuff like that. I have been doing at least online activism for a long fucking time. I have been sharing posts of creators of those categories for so much time now, so many years. But like, imagine being a 14-year-old and not knowing where to start with all of this, not knowing where to go with all of this, and maybe not even having access to any resources in your local area. And right now I want to start my transition as a trans person, and that means I have to look up resources. And if I go to Google and type in my local area and then try to find resources where I have to start my transitioning process, there's nothing. I have to say that the USA is way better equipped in assigning resources to LGBTQ people than they are in Germany. Like, in Germany, it's still pretty fucking bad. People do not know the lingo that is used in trans communities. People do not know what a dead name is. People do not know what a transition means. If you type in transition or like the German equivalent, you get something very convoluted on Google, and if I try to find stuff, I have to look harder than I have to do with English speaking sources. But like, it doesn't help me as a German person to see English speaking sources on how to transition, because the same process is different in my home country. So this one plays into that as well, because there are a lot of people that are marginalized from other countries as well, where the country themselves isn't giving you a good structure on where to start with how you can get help as a person that is part of the LGBTQ community. So yeah, I did find some centers that would help me as an LGBTQ individual, where I can get information on where I can start my transitioning process. But like, if you go in any US speaking countries and you want to start your transitioning process as a trans person, it is pretty easy to just like type in a few buzzwords and then have a professional in your area that actually labeled themselves under those words. So you can find them as a trans person where you can go to that actually deal with people like you. Because I can honestly say, as someone who has a lot of mental disorders, it is really hard because I have to jump from professional to professional a lot, because a lot of times they evaluate you for like a few sessions and then they go like, oh, we suspect you have this thing, and personally our facility doesn't deal with this, so please go somewhere else, but I cannot tell you where to go. And then I'm like, wow, so I'm back at zero, essentially. And I really do not want to go to a random psychologist to talk about my trans issues if they cannot get to the resources around that. And it is really hard to find that out beforehand. You kind of have to go through a myriad of trial and error in your process of finding a resource, which is pretty fucking hard. So it would be much better if the LGBTQ community had straight people as an ally that would label themselves more. That's also why it's important for straight people to put pronouns in their bios. And the chat says, as long as you don't force your ship or headcanon on people, you're fine with me. Yes, absolutely right. As long as you don't pretend that your opinions upon a character are real and fact and superior to others, then you're completely fine. There are people that headcanon certain characters a certain way and draw them a certain way, and then people like feel the need to go into the comment section and be like, oh, but it shouldn't be this way and you shouldn't look this way. And while I personally dislike a few headcanons, this is just my personal opinion. If someone does those headcanons, I do not hate this person, I do not address this person, and I will not write them a mean comment because this is just shitty behavior. But I personally do not like it if someone takes characters that are essentially made to be representative of me and make them into something that they are not. I am a very small trans person, so if I find a character that is representing a very small, potentially trans person or a very small gay person, then I'm identifying with them a lot. And if people go out of their way to make them look like, I don't know, a 2 meter tall adult Hulk person type that is straight, then I'm getting irky with this, of course. But that is my personal opinion. People are still free to draw a character however they want to and to essentially headcanon them however they want to, because I have seen, essentially in every fandom, I have seen some common things that often get like drawn by artists a lot. And you like to headcanon Kaede with autism, but you don't like to share it. I headcanon Kaede based on her report card as a girl that is actually plus size and that is actually bigger, and people like to draw her really thin when in comparison to other characters in her report card, she's actually one of the individuals that is actually looking more actually leaning more on a plus size side. All of the height and weight assignments that Danganronpa has given to the characters are very weird. They aren't like entirely healthy. All of them are very fucking underweight. I made comments about this in the past. But like if you were to compare Kaede's height to other characters with a similar height, you can find out that she is on the heavier side in quotation marks. Same goes for Mikan, by the way. If you look it up, you can fact check that if you want to and compare her to other characters of a similar height from the same franchise and find out that her body weight is actually higher, which isn't really shown in her sprites, so I get why people do not headcanon it that way, but I read that up and I was kind of intrigued by that, and I was kind of like, seems to me like it could be plus size. Also, Kaede has indications in her, I would say, canon lore that could make her a representative for plus-sized people, because she mentions in the free time events with Shuichi, I think it's the free time events with Shuichi, where she's in the gym, or is it like the Salmon add-on? I think it's the Salmon add-on, where she mentions that she isn't allowed to do sports because it could hurt her piano fingers, essentially. And that's where she mentions that she basically isn't allowed to even participate in school sport, which to me can be an indicator that she might be plus size, according to her weight. But she is not portrayed or drawn as overweight in the game, so it's basically a headcanon I came up with based on some aspects of the game. And if you like to headcanon Kaede with autism, that is also completely valid. And if you like to headcanon any character as trans, that is also completely valid. I have seen people drawn, especially in Danganronpa, people like to do that, where they draw characters as trans and just show them with a binder, or show them on the beach with like having scarring under their breasts, essentially, because they had top surgery and stuff like that, and they like to headcanon it that way. And I think that's lovable, because whenever you have someone headcanon something as something, you will have people that feel very accepted by that. Essentially, also, if a character is very queer-baited, in my opinion, that is pretty easy to headcanon them as LGBTQ in the end, just because like the franchise already gave you the bait for it, essentially. So the people that are LGBTQ usually already associate with that character, and there's still going to be people going around like, no, this character has to be straight, when there has never been any confirmation about their sexuality at all. So I'm just like, bruh. Yeah, I do not understand why people are so strict about trying to be right with their imagination of a character. Like, you cannot tell another person that they are wrong. They can still like do anything they want in their head. Yeah, Ibuki is basically a queer-coded character. And if you were to look at it in the Japanese original, Kokichi is a very fucking queer-coded character. And who else? Kaede is also a queer-coded character. Tenko, obviously, if we're talking about Danganronpa now. And who else I have to think? Thinking Nagito is also very queer-coded, if not very obviously queer-coded. But I have to say that there is such oppression on the LGBTQ community that a lot of characters just get like this hidden queer code thing assigned to them, because the author isn't allowed to write fully queer characters in the studio that they are working at. Gonta is a really sweet character. I can understand why people feel that he is a comfort character. Gonta is a really sweet character. I also am a person that will never ever hate a character of any fandom. I have such a hard time hating on any character. There are usually people being uncomfortable with characters or straight up like hating a character. And I hate when people do that. Like, there's a very, very popular big YouTuber for at least any fandom that would make videos on why they hate one certain character and then try to break it down into an analysis or some kind of shit. And I really hate when people do that. Like, if you hate a character, keep it to yourself. And I fully do not understand how people can actually hate on a character, because in the end, what is there to hate? It is just like a character, and then it gets interpreted in so many different ways by the fandom in the end. So yeah. And also, what I don't understand in the Danganronpa fandom is people hate on a character because this character killed a character that I like. And I'm like, alright, but then why does everyone love Junko so much? Because like, she's literally the most popular character in the fandom. You can look that up. There's actual research done on what character in the Danganronpa in the Danganronpa universe is the most popular character in the, I think the top three picks are Junko, Kokichi, and Nagito as the most popular characters. Those are closely followed by I do not know. I love Danganronpa, it's a cool franchise. I have seen some really funny shit from the community, and I have seen some really depressing shit from the community. I have seen people sympathize with characters a lot, and I think over the years the community has kind of grown into something that doesn't romanticize bad characters that much anymore. Like, most people are pretty much aware of characters being very two-faced, because like Junko literally, spoilers, started a killing game to kill everyone essentially for her own amusement. I have not seen the anime yet, but I will be in the future, and I just want to put that out there so I don't get spoiled. So yeah, but essentially I think people who like Junko aren't really romanticizing that, and people who like Kokichi mainly aren't romanticizing the terrible things he's done. And also for the other characters, it's also pretty easy to, pretty hard to say that about characters from Danganronpa being like, oh, I like this character because they are good, or I like this character because they are bad, when like half of the cast of Danganronpa has literally killed someone. Yeah. Most people kinning characters from Danganronpa, and most people being interested in characters and liking characters from Danganronpa actually addressed their bad behavior of that certain character that has done some shitty things, and have already kind of, I would say, reassessed values over them. And personally, yes, I do kin a little bit of Kokichi, and yes, I like him very much. I draw him a lot, I cosplay him, as you can probably see in my pictures. Why is this so cringy to say out loud? But it is. But yeah, I do not like the terrible actions that he has done, of course. And the discrepancy between good and evil is a topic in Danganronpa itself. And kind of Danganronpa characters in the fandom are often taken out of the rhetoric of the killing game, I have seen. Like, a lot of fan fictions work outside of the killing game, which would essentially change a lot of things about the characters, because if the killing game doesn't force them to kill each other, then of course many of those characters probably wouldn't be murderers. Some of them still are murderers, spoilers, but like most of them would probably still be decent humans, or try to be decent humans, and not be like... The killing game, or the essential plot of Danganronpa, is designed to bring out the worst in the characters, and people like to forget that sometimes. But I think there's a lot of accusations going on in the fandom of romanticizing shit. And while I have seen younger fans that aren't as educated do that, all of the more older fans that have been here for longer basically do not really do that. They are mostly very educated on the characters and what bad shit their character has done, and what problematic shit is going on with their character, and misrepresentation. Kokichigans get way too much hate, and this is coming from someone who isn't the biggest fan of him. Yes, thank you. How did this topic derail into speaking upon Danganronpa? But essentially, here we are, I guess. Essentially, the stream is Danganronpa content now. I started out the stream because of a cosplayer getting hate, actually. Do more than just show up for Pride. Some people do not even show up for Pride, can I just say that? Do you know how many allies just like post online but like do not show up for Pride at all? Oh, hi Mushroom Head, I'm so glad you're here with me again. I hope I'm not annoying you with like the constant streams that I'm doing. I'm really glad that you're here. we're currently, if you aren't informed, we're currently reading up on the discussion of it's not your place to speak on this, and everything that is behind that sentence that I can find on the web, I would say. June is intended to mark a key moment when a lot of ambient outrage at injustice coalesce. Shit, I cannot speak English, I'm sorry. Unleashing a wave of radical organization that helps spawn the LGBTQ movement as we know it. Half a century later, we all need to be reminded that many of those injustices and much of that outrage are still too real. Yeah, the injustice of people of color and LGBTQ communities has been so prevalent over the entirety of hundreds of years that the anger and hate that this community sometimes radiates is very understandable. And I also have to say that the kindest people that I know are usually LGBTQ people, because they have been facing so much struggle in their life and so much discrimination that they mostly become empathic and do not want other people to go through this at all. So they try their best to be as respectable as they can. The most respectable people, in my opinion, and from my experience, are LGBTQ people also respecting LGBTQ people. Which essentially means if I out myself as trans towards a person where I can clearly tell or know that they are probably cis and straight and have never interacted with anything LGBTQ more than 5 seconds in their life, I can already brace myself for what is going to come at me. And it is so tiring, personally. It's so tiring. If you are a part of the LGBTQ community, you know. You know. So, yeah. Yeah, it is tiring. But, like, I would derail my own argumentative takes if I wouldn't act upon what I believe in, and what I believe in is acceptance. So I need to be accepting myself, and that is a lot of sentiment that comes from the LGBTQ community. And that is what the LGBTQ community essentially practices. And that's why LGBTQ people also feel very, very comfortable around other LGBTQ people, of course. Which is a pretty easy explanation, but yeah. Allyship. Don't just say it, do it. I heard what happened. That's so shitty. Right. Do you want to talk about it? If I read that, I can only think about a friend of mine that was going to an LGBTQ rally. She's also a feminist. I think she was demonstrating for feminist rights on that day. And essentially, the rally was mismanaged to keep the crowd smaller and smaller and smaller. So all of the people get really cluttered up, which is really fucking toxic during corona times. But like, police would essentially be utilized to make the crowd smaller and smaller and smaller, so they would get closer together. So in the end, they could have a reasoning for splitting off the parade in itself, so no one gets to demonstrate, which is a really fucking toxic thing. And imagine just like being in that crowd of people. And she posted so much about this. I think she documented a lot of pictures and video evidence. And then in the end, when the parade was done, the media would cover that thing. And the media would take on the rhetoric of those evil people protesting, when it instead wasn't even the people protesting. The people who protested would go up to the police and kindly ask for them to make more space, but the police would like clutter stairways and things like that, so people could not get up there and essentially have the correct distance between each other while actually being promised that they could. Imagine you go to like in my country, protests have to be accepted by the government. So essentially the government can decide not to have a protest or to have a protest, and the government already approved of that protest. So if you get your approval for that, and then you go there, and then police is utilized to essentially make the protest as inaccessible as possible. And then in the end, the media twists the entire situation and just be like, oh, but the LGBTQ people are evil and they do not respect the corona rules. When in fact, it wasn't the people's fault, and the people would actually, as documented by my friend on her live Instagram, the people from the protest would actually go up to the police and ask them kindly to give them more space and to move, but the police just didn't. So I fucking hate that. Also, I have aloe vera grape flavor thingy on my desk, and I'm gonna try that one out now because I really want to know what it tastes like. That tastes fucking horrible. Oh my god, why did I buy this? I did because I'm weird. I'm gonna read the chat. Even now, our rights are attempted to be taken away. Like when Ohio, I think it was Ohio, tried to pass a bill that healthcare services could refuse to treat LGBTQ plus people. Yes, and I think there was also, there's also so many bills that are just passed behind our backs about LGBTQ issues. Like essentially, there was a bill that got approved in Germany that would make the pricing for a legal name change drop down to $50. Like, do you know, $50, everyone can fucking afford that. But no, they have to be elitist about it, so it's still up at like $2,000 or euros. I'm sorry, I'm gonna use euros. But like, do you know how cool it would have been for trans people that have an actual medical diagnosis to get reduced bill on their name change for like only having to pay $50? That would have been so cool. But no, our Conservative Party had to be shitty about it, and our Conservative Party had to be like essentially go out of the way to be like, oh, no, we do not want that. Bye, we're not gonna pass that bill. And it was done purely in the hands of people that are already higher up, so we as the public couldn't even decide upon that. So like, it's just like, imagine all the queer people that couldn't get to decide on how queer people get handled, essentially. That is just something that is so strange to me. And that is just one of the cases where I can only say, it is not your place to speak on this. Also, I think my screen is kind of making a trans flag right now. Like you have this blue segment here on the side, and then this white segment, and then my stream frame that is like this pink segment on the bottom. And I think that's kind of cute, but maybe it's a stretch. I think it's a stretch. Allies actually support LGBTQ people and work to end homophobia, biphobia, and transphobia, and all other xenophobia, I would say. Yeah, like essentially queer people are just like, and black people also just like expected to come into this world with like $20 million so they can actually pay for all the shit that is done to them. This website is kind of a bit better on what you can do as an ally. Way better than that weird Vox article. Like, this actually gives examples, and I think that's kind of good. Also, like, the entire what you should call a person and what you shouldn't is something that the person likes to decide themselves. I had the discussion before. If anyone doesn't know, like, there was that thing on Twitch. There was that thing on Twitch happening where Twitch tried to call trans people Wixmen, essentially. If you do not know what I'm referring to, it's written like this. Wixman, or I think it's pronounced Wixman, or sometimes it isn't called. Sometimes it is called woman, and it is like it tries to get rid of the A in men, so you can make that term gender non-specific, when in actuality that is just a fucking horrible take, and I want to explain why. It really isn't an inclusive term. I just have to say that it isn't an inclusive term. Imagine you are a male to female or a female to male trans person, right? And imagine you go somewhere and someone calls you that. I would be kind of pissed that someone calls me that, because like I try to not be seen as a woman, and I do not like any words being associated with the term woman. And yeah, and this website, I already documented that on my, I think on my, what's it called? Instagram. I already talked about this, but like, yeah, so it's an intersectional term that was made to be inclusive, but, and I just want to highlight this, right? Woman, on the other hand, has become an anti-trans term used by radical feminists who incorrectly believe that trans inclusivity invalidates their plight. Oof. Yeah, and Twitch tried to be inclusive and call trans people that, so yeah, of course that wasn't going well. That was going well for like 1 second, and then everyone made fun of them. Remember, trans women are women, full stop. Trans women are women, and trans women only like to be referred to as women. And trans women only like to be referred to as women, and the other thing you can refer to, trans women like to be referred to is what they choose themselves. So if a trans woman comes out to you and says that she likes to be referred to as a Wixman, then that is cool. But like, imagine trying to have an identity where you just want to be seen and fully accepted as a woman, and people go out of your way to call you something different than a woman. How can it be so hard for people? Oof. And also, now the other thing that is very weird about the universal term Wixman, non-binary people aren't woman or man, which is the entire point of being non-binary. Before coming out as trans, I identified as non-binary for so many years, where I was just tired of being associated with any gender shit. And if someone would have called me a Wixman, I would have been like, excuse me, what the fuck? But I read an article that said Wixman is inclusive. Yeah, back to video topic. It's not your place to speak on this. Like, it is not your place to speak on something if you aren't, like, of that category of people. If you are a cis person and you try to do good, it is pretty easy to do that by being an ally and always listening to what trans people tell you. So if you call a trans woman a Wixman and she gets offended and she tells you to fucking not and just call her a woman like she wants to be addressed, then it is very shitty of you to get upset about being corrected, because essentially it's not your place to speak on this. I read the chat. Sylveon, the fairy type Pokemon, has the colors of the trans flag. Yes, I know, and it is one of my favorite Pokemon. And back in the day when I was doing a lot of Pokemon art, I have drawn it multiple times, which would have probably been an indicator for me. It is in my top 5 Pokemon that I fucking love. And yeah. Homophobes will say a trans women aren't women, and when a guy wears a dress, they'll say he's not a man. Yes. But like, in the same statement, transphobes are very confused about their own gender stereotypes. Did I read this right as transphobes? Yeah, I think I did, because like chat corrected themselves. Sylveon is my favorite Pokemon, to be honest. Sylveon is such a pretty and cool Pokemon. I love Sylveon. We're gonna pull Sylveon on screen for a second. we're gonna is that a real PNG? Yeah, it is. And then we're gonna go and yes. Sylvian says trans rights. So yeah, I like to do weird edits on stream. That's just like when you learn Photoshop and when you're the Photoshop pro, essentially. Dabs on the haters. Then you just gotta implement it somewhere in your life. Why are people so hateful? Just let people be happy. Yes. I got a figure of Sylvian somewhere. Yeah, that's really cool. I got a plushie of Sylvian. I think it's in the other room. Somewhere in the other room. But like my cats like to nibble on it, so I'm kind of keeping it away from them. So I do not know where I currently have it, but I do have a plushie of Sylvian. I remember seeing a video that made a joke about this, and people in the comments were saying just people of color didn't mean the Pokemon was trans. Some even said that they made them dislike it or hate it because it has the trans flag. Or why? What do you mean? How do I show my allyship? Of course, always ask for consent first. Just don't repost the trans or non-binary's person content simply to make your product look good. Yes. This also happens a lot, that people just steal from essentially trans creators. Something really cringy. Yeah, I do have cats, and my cats also had Instagram back in the day, but like I deleted it because it wasn't easy for me to keep up so many accounts. But I think I do have pictures of my cats on, yeah, I sometimes show them on my Instagram story, but only sometimes. So, preferred pronouns, and you have a Mimikyu plush, that's also pretty cute. Yeah, I think my cats are also sleeping right now. They have been pretty active before, but right now they're like not. How to degender your space. Yeah, that is personally someone, like I have a very close friend that is also trans, and we sometimes like send us TikToks and jokes about trans people and stuff. And as a trans person, I just have to say, like, this is something that is very important to me personally. Like, okay, imagine this. Imagine you go out and someone misgenders you, and then you correct them and everything is good, and then they refer to you by your preferred pronouns. Everything is good, right? But then there's just those people that go out of their way to make everything gendered, and by that I mean those people that have to, like, I have worked in the gastronomy, right? And when I worked in the gastronomy, I would never go up to people and call them a lady or a sir just out of random. Like, why do people do that? Why do they go out of the way to call you gendered terms like... Like, sometimes people just go out of their way to refer to you by a gender term. Like, I was strolling through the city a few days ago, just like trying not to be annoyed by people, and then there was a store clerk that wanted to give me like a test of some kind of skin product, and he came up to me and he essentially told me that I should wait and test out the skin product because it is very fitting for a pretty young lady like me. Cringe. Why? Why do you gotta talk like that? If you talk like that, you make it so much easier for yourself to just fall into the trap of saying something transphobic, essentially. I mean, like saying something. Is it transphobic in that regard? You know, you all know what I mean. Like saying something that doesn't sit well with the LGBTQ community, essentially. Like being transphobic or like assigning gender to people on accident is like, you can avoid that by just looking out for not make weird generalizations in your pattern of speech, right? So I like this page on allyship. Essentially, if don't assume anyone's pronouns. Just fucking ask. It is so easy, like this page tells you. Do not use pronouns associated with a trans person's sex assigned at birth. Ask them what pronouns they use, because a lot of trans people just like me go by he, they pronouns. So I am pretty much okay with being addressed as they. This is because I want to start my transition process into only being associated with he pronouns slowly. And a lot of people have been addressing me with they, them pronouns for several years now. So I do not want to constantly correct and shame people. That is bothersome to me and brings out my dysphoria. I kind of just want the conversation flow to slowly go into a direction. And I think people in my personal circle are doing pretty well towards the entire transgender. I will probably make a video on when I'm coming out to my parents, and they will probably fucking hate it. I do not know what my parents will say about the entire thing of me transitioning, essentially. But I will start my transition at the end of this month. This is when I will actively search out for resources to try to get on hormones, essentially start the entire evaluation process that you need to go through to then get hormones and to then start surgery. But I have been thinking about using my own savings, because I do have some monetary savings left, maybe in a year or two, to get top surgery, because top surgery is something I am very, very confident that I want and that I always wanted my entire life, since I am like, I do not know, like 16, 17, when I was very, very fucking sure that I was definitely non-binary or something else. And by the time I was already like, yeah, I do not like my breasts, they can go away. Celestia Ludenberg says, I would love to wear a skirt or dress, but I'm afraid of being chastised by my family and peers. I do not know your context to this. I am a biological female, and I have been trying to hide my dysphoria several years by wearing very traditionally girly clothing. I archived all my pictures on this, but I look pretty Barbie-ish in my old pictures. Like, I do not know if I do have pictures of that. I think I can't find one. Let's see. Oh yeah. Pictures. Oh my god, cringe. Like, I'm gonna download that picture and show you. Like, that is me, like, several months ago, when I was identifying as non-binary, but I was already pretty fucking uncomfortable with all of this. But, like, the thing is, yes, I am... What the fuck? Yes, I am a trans person. Yes, I am a trans man. But, like, my favorite colors are, like, pink and purple. And pink and purple are associated with being female, so if I wear stuff like that, people are just like, oh, you cannot identify as a man now, which is just so bullshitty. Like, I personally have identified as non-binary for so long, where I was just fully agreeing with the sentiment that you do not need anything to pass. Essentially, you need to pass what you feel comfortable with. So if you want to wear anything, you can do so. And even after I have transitioned fully, I will probably wear dresses. And I do have Lolita clothing, and I love that clothing, and I think any man can also wear that. And I also know a lot of, if you feel very, very weird about this exact thing, it is probably helpful for you to maybe look into the cosplay community, because a lot of trans men in the cosplay community also cosplay as females. So yes, they identify as men, and they are men, but they have been biological females and they cosplay as females, which is confusing at first, but if you look at it from a different perspective, it's just like, well, if you like that character, you can cosplay that character. Like, gender and like clothing has no gender to me. If I still want to look like that, I still want to look like that. But I feel very uncomfortable personally getting compliments about how feminine I look. So I avoid looking like this. But I would probably wear those things in my room. But I personally do not like it if I go out on conventions and then get like comments about, you know, how female I look, how this is very sweet and feminine. And then weirdo insult people come up to me again. Sorry. And like be really slimy about, I would like to have a traditional woman such as you. And I'm like, I'm a man. Cringe. I love pink and purple, but I worry if people will make fun of me. That is an absolute valid worry to have, and I will make another stream talking about just trans issues in general, and how I deal with them and how I identify with all of this and stuff like this, where I will also go into the detail of my clothing, because there are people that simply follow me since my Lolita period, where I would be wearing a lot of Lolita clothes essentially, and those people know me from Lolita forums and like dress ups and essentially trying to look like a princess, like essentially princess core. And a lot of times trans people try really hard to assimilate with their birth gender because they have such a hard time accepting their birth gender. Their gender assigned at birth, I mean. Like, essentially, a lot of people struggled with that over the period of time. So if you see old photos of trans people, you can often kind of see that there have been periods in their life. This is not universal for like every trans person, but I know a lot of trans people where it is their case. And it is also the case for me, that back in the day I was really into hyper feminine looks, that I wanted to look as Barbie-ish and princess-ish as I could, which is also determined by how I grew up in my childhood and stuff like that, where I wasn't allowed to wear gendered clothing essentially. Like, my parents raised me non-binary, which is still the sentiment I went by for many, many years. But when I as a kid wanted to have like a princess dress or something, my mom would refuse to buy me one. So I compensated for that in my early teens by wearing a lot of very, I would say, female-oriented or female-coded clothing. I would go into very hyper-feminine looks. Favorite color pink, very long bleached blonde hair, stuff like that. I would have very, very long blonde hair for a long period of my time. And the older I got, the more I essentially had mental breakdowns and agonized about the struggles female assigned at birth people struggle with. I would have a lot of stress about trying to look female. I would fucking hate it. And I would only accept myself if I could achieve a very hyper feminine look. And I like that look and I like that fashion style, but I feel very uncomfortable trying to achieve that. And I feel very uncomfortable by the attention I attract with it. I learned that I kind of want to dress for myself and that I feel bad if my clothing attracts a certain kind of attention. And with my female-oriented clothing, I would always have the struggle of people being really bipolar about me, essentially, being really like women hating on me and being really derogatory about me, and men being overly complimentary about me. And the more I got comfortable with my trans identity, the more this would stop and the more it would be more comfortable for me, essentially. So I love the look, but I'm personally probably taking a long break from wearing stuff like that in public. And I think, like, of course you can wear what you want. And if you are male to female, I cannot really speak for you on that because I'm female to male. But if you want an advice for one trans person to another, I just advise you to wear what you want and at least keep it in your closet. And if you feel comfortable enough, maybe if you are in a group of friends or something, you can put on those clothes. Or if you are like with your close family and partners and stuff, you can put on those clothes. And maybe that makes you feel better about it, because limiting yourself because other people make fun of you is a very dreadful existence, I would say. That is something that feels really, really bad. When you want to be something or express yourself in a certain way and you can't because you're just so afraid of what outrage this generates, essentially, that does not feel comfortable and that does not feel good. So my advice would be to start out small and to just like at least purchase the clothing you want to have. If you already purchased that stuff, try wear it in your room. Maybe you can come out to the internet, because sometimes internet spaces that are for trans people and stuff are more open-minded towards things like that. And then maybe you can come out to your closer friends. You kind of have to find out which circles are more accepting of that kind of stuff. And I cannot fully tell you to just wear what you want and go out and wear what you want then, because you might live in an area where that is dangerous, and I do not want to be the person to just like tell you to essentially run into the knife, if you know what I mean, because that can be very fucking dangerous for trans people. So yeah. Be right back. I need to do something. Yeah. It's cool. You can come back anytime. I mean, I'm gonna upload the stream later anyways. I'm also over time with the stream, but like, okay, I guess it's going to be longer then. Yeah. Check out this awesome game where you can practice pronoun grammar. Like, resources like that exist. I just want to say that resources like that exist. If you use the wrong pronoun for somebody, apologize and move on. Admit you messed up, but don't make it into a big deal. Very important for allies, very fucking important for allies to just not make it a big deal. You will feel that trans people around you get very uncomfortable if you make your own mistake a big deal. Just like, don't make it a big deal and move on. Don't out LGBTQ people. This is a very That is a very serious thing. Like, okay, I can just say, as someone from the LGBTQ community who has been a member of the LGBTQ community for so many fucking years now, I just want to point out that a general sentiment towards all allies is, please don't be over-performative. Please don't be over-performative in your activism and in your allyship. If you are pretending like a dog at my knees to be like super, I don't know, super submissive towards me because I'm a trans person, and you try to do everything right, and then you make one mistake and you break out into tears and just go into a complete, I don't know, episode about it, that will make me uncomfortable in normal discourse. And if you overdo things like that, they can also out me. I had to explain that to friends as well, how outing works, because a lot of trans people, I personally don't feel weird about it, but some trans people feel weird about it. If you have a trans friend, if you are an ally and you have a trans friend, and they tell you to address them by a certain type of pronoun, that does not mean you should tell that to other people. And this does also not mean that you should go out into the wild public and address them by that pronoun, because some trans people might be very fucking closeted and not be ready for that potential violence that they could face. Like, imagine you have a trans friend and you go out in the city, and then someone approaches you and starts talking with you, and you want to say something inclusive about your trans friend, so you say something along the lines of, oh, and this is my friend, and they are transgender, and they go by he, him pronouns. Yeah, I think you can understand how that can go wrong. Because now you have the initial reaction of your counterpart that you just met. Like, essentially, that person you just met can have any reaction. They can be going into a violent tangent about how this is not fitting into their very radical belief system and how they hate trans people. And I don't think your trans friend wants that. Also, like, don't speak over your trans friend. If your trans friend wants to explain their pronouns and their situation of being trans, then please let them do that, and don't do it for them. Even if you think you are helping, you're probably just babying them. So the entire outing of LGBTQ people is something they should do themselves, and if you do it for them, you can cause them a lot of harm. You can cause them, like, to get attacked by strangers that, like, do not like trans people and call them slurs. And essentially, imagine you and your trans friend enter a new Discord server, both together, and you tell people to use the correct pronouns for your trans friend, but your trans friend hasn't outed themselves. Well, and that can, if you have very bad luck, that can attract a crowd of very angry fucking individuals calling you slurs, and you do not want this to happen to your trans friend, and that's why you do not out any other trans people. You just don't. Especially as an ally. And you should also, as an ally, if you get a new friend and that person is trans, and you find out that they are trans, because sometimes you just don't find out, you just, like, do not know. But, like, if you find out that they are trans, don't go out of your way to explain that to other people at all. Like, that is their thing to do. And also ask them how much they are outed towards the public and how you should deal with that. That is what a good ally does. A good ally always looks for sourcing and reassurance from the people of a community. Like, if I were to do something for black cosplayers, I ask those black cosplayers if that is okay. And if I want to make, like, a post about racism, I look at the sourcing, and if it comes from a black source, or if it comes from, like, white people talking over black voices, because that is not good, of course. And there we go to the video topic. It's not your place to speak on this. And that is why you don't out LGBTQ people, because it is not your place to speak on this. It is not your business. Even if you think you're being nice, because a lot of people accidentally out friends by trying to be nice. And I have seen a trans guy that is very young having in my mutual circle, having, like, a conversation with a friend, and the friend was an ally, and that ally was very fucking angry and very fucking confused, because essentially they just said things like, oh, It is confusing to me how you want me to address you by he, him pronouns when we go somewhere, but then like a random person appears and suddenly you change your mind and I don't think you are trans anymore or some kind of shit. Which is first of all fucking transphobic to say to someone. And second of all, it is not your place to decide that. But third of all, as the trans person in that situation, it is kind of a bit of your responsibility to tell people to be careful with outing you. And you should have told your friend beforehand that this is not acceptable behavior. But also allies are the ones having more responsibility in this and essentially looking up sourcing like I do right now to show to allies so they can essentially understand and learn before being in close contact with a trans person and then doing things wrong. Or imagine this, you just live your normal life and then some of your close friends come out to you as trans. That is when you have to, because they are your friends, right? So you should probably take your time and go to websites like this and just look up stuff about trans people and how you should act around them, how to be an ally to trans people. That is very helpful to look up. Because, again, it is not your place to speak on something and have an opinion on something if you aren't educated on that topic. And that goes for all kinds of isms, all kinds of racism, transphobia, and all those other things. Those often happen accidentally and are perpetuated accidentally. I'm gonna read the chat. I saw a story of a sibling outing their gay brother by their homophobic parents and the brother got kicked out. The brother stopped talking to them and they were confused and mad even though they outed. Yes. Because sometimes people just don't know this simple rule of don't out LGBTQ people. Which is a very fucking simple rule and that is something that has been around for so long. I have personally, as a person in the LGBTQ field, I have also made mistakes towards other people in the LGBTQ field. Like, I am not perfect just because I am part of the LGBTQ field. So it is also my own responsibility to read up on certain other groups from the LGBTQ community that I frequently interact with. Back when I was, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, there was a person on the web and they outed themselves as trans, and oh my god, I cringed so much at this, and I wrote a comment under their video because I just found them, and I remembered them from when I was 13, when I was really fucking young, where I watched them. And back in the day, this person identified as gay and a man, and now they are identifying as transgender and a woman. And when I found one of their videos, I didn't really know anything about that, and I just saw their face and I recognized the face, and I knew that back in the day they were identifying as a gay man, so I addressed them accidentally by their dead name, cringe, and I also looked up that video when I learned what a dead name was several months later. I looked up that video again and deleted and edited my comments so it wouldn't trigger the creator, which was probably already the case since they probably already read it. But when I tried to look up that video had already been archived or deleted or privated. It was gone, so my comment wasn't showing up on it anymore, or at least I couldn't edit it anymore. And I don't know if I tried to delete it then, but like, if a YouTube video is gone and you have commented on that video, I think your comments are also gone, but I'm not quite sure. I think that's kind of a thing. But yeah, the rule of don't out LGBTQ people can be so dangerous if not followed, and so important. So just... Also, don't expect praise for being an ally. This is something some people of the LGBTQ community will give you. Some people will praise you for being an ally just because they are just so happy. They are just out of their heels when they see someone as an ally, you know? And other people of the LGBTQ community kind of roll their eyes and get really annoyed if allies want praise. Because, like, it is not supposed to be something that you get praise for. It is something that should be normalized in society, and it's really fucking sad that it isn't. So yeah, that's more of the case. Don't act like an expert on LGBTQ rights. Yes, also very important. I also do not like to act like an expert on all of those topics. I can only talk about my vast friend circle that is LGBTQ, and me myself being LGBTQ, and a lot of people coming to ask me for help about being LGBTQ, essentially. And yeah. Yeah, I had a comment chain a few days ago where someone would address me as ma'am on purpose, and then some other person would just like address me as sir in response to him, just like copying their comment, but with the correct pronouns essentially. And then I would go into the comments and ask them, hey, okay, what's up? And then the person was just like replying to me with nothing really. I only made this comment to correct a transphobe, which is kind of wholesome to me. Yeah, but I'm really glad if people don't boast themselves. I have seen a TikTok of a person that makes cakes, and they do a very cool filming process where they have the cake on a small spinny wheel, and they pour colors over it, and then they spin the cake, and the colors like dissolve, and then those colors are themed by, I think, LGBTQ flags. And the cake maker started a series where they would make TikToks with all of the flags presented in the LGBTQ community. And then one person just like asked them to make a straight ally flag, and the cake maker did not want to do it, so he just like wrote no on the cake. Which I do not know how to feel about. But I understand that some people of the LGBTQ community are tired of how cis people act and do not want to give them praise for simple things like that. And of course I looked through the comments, because controversial videos like this are always worth checking out the comment section. And yeah, the comments were talking about how straight allies do not deserve a flag because essentially they are in a marginalized group, and essentially they do not get the right to boast about being a decent human being towards LGBTQ people, which I kind of understand. But if they want a flag, I'm just like, oh, well, okay, give them one if they want to make a flag so bad, and if they want to be like uplifted for being an ally, or at least showing the allyship with the flag, then I think that's cool. Like, alright. Don't make it about you is a very fucking important point. That is very hard for a lot of cis people to deal with, that I come out to. When I'm like, my pronouns are this and that, and then they are like, oh, but it is so hard for me to adjust to this. And I'm like, how is that hard for you? Because like it has been way fucking harder for me to essentially out myself as trans than any like straight individual just being like, oh, but like this tiny thing where I should respect your pronouns is so hard. And I have been struggling with getting pronouns wrong of people I like over the course of my life. Definitely, that doesn't mean like I am flawless and that I can do it better than them or anything. I did get pronouns wrong of people, and then I apologized, and then I corrected myself and did them right, like any normal, decent person would. And then it's okay, I guess. And yeah, we can't hang out like we used to. You're too sensitive now. Yeah, that is some bullshit you kind of face as a trans person. I hate it. I swear some people want to be oppressed so bad. Cis and white people will try to play the victim. Yes, and as a white person, I clearly have seen a lot of white trash content. There are funny videos on YouTube about white people being really trashy about that and trying to be the victim because they are white. It is very funny if cis white men do it. Like, it is sad and kind of funny. It's like, why? I do not know, like, do these people not know that we from the LGBTQ community essentially really laugh about them a lot. Like, we find that kind of humorous, that people just have the indecency to be like that. Of course no one takes them seriously. Of course no one took the fucking straight pride shit seriously. Everyone in the LGBTQ community either made informed posts about it or memed about it. Like, straight pride is such a shitty thing to say and to do. I hate that. I hate it with all my heart. It's just so hypocritical. It's just like, imagine the scenario, you go into first grade and then there is this one very intelligent child, in quotation marks, that just tries to one-up everyone with facts and logic. That's how that feels. Like, the entire argumentative process behind straight pride is just like arguing with a toddler, and the toddler feeling that they have won and that they are right, and you're like, oh, just wait until, like, society bites you back in the ass for that. At that instance, I just want to share a funny story a friend had told me. Back in first grade, a friend of mine had a good friend, and that good friend would say that lions, this is so funny to me, that lions are clearly the ones with the mane are the females, because only girls have long hair. Oof. And back in the day, this first grader would literally be so fucking sure about their statement that the maned lions would be the females because they have long hair. Which was like a gotcha moment, I owned you lips moment, or some kind of Ben Shapiro-ish take, in my opinion. This is just like arguing with a toddler, right? That is what I felt like when someone represented that straight pride shit to me. I was like, just stop. If you haven't seen the straight pride video, I will probably include it in my talks about more LGBTQ related stuff in the future. But essentially I have to say, it's just like a white dude, I think it's a white dude, staring into the camera, making puppy eyes and being really sad and having a dismissive and like submissive tone of voice and just talking like an LGBTQ person would, but essentially replacing everything with like straight pride. And then being like, I'm so oppressed because no one takes straight pride seriously. And the entire LGBTQ community is just like vibing in the comment section. Like, of course no one takes your fucking straight pride seriously. Of course they don't. It was a trolling and satire movement, and yeah, the LGBTQ community didn't find it funny. And also they made kind of a fool of themselves when they started that. But like, the sentiment of it in itself is not funny, but like memeing on them and like dunking on them is very much funny. The problem of speaking for others. Oof. The problem of speaking for others. Consider the following true story. Anne Cameron, a very gifted white Canadian author, writes several semi-fictional accounts of the lives of Native Canadian women. She writes them in first person and assumes a Native identity. At the 1988 International Feminist Book Fair in Montreal, a group of Native Canadian writers decided to ask Cameron to, in their words, move over on the grounds that her writings are disempowering for Native authors. She agrees. Well, white people strike again. After the 1989 elections in Panama are overturned by Manuel Noriega, President Bush of the United States declares a public address that Noriega's actions constitute an outrageous fraud and that the voice of Panamanian people has spoken. The Panamanian people, he tells us, want democracy and not tyranny. They want Noriega out. He proceeds to plan the invasion of Panama. At the recent symposium at my university, a prestigious theorist was invited to give a lecture on the political problems of postmodernism. Those of us in the audience, including many white women and people oppressed by nationality and races. We cannot read further. Sad that this is just a preview, but like sounds interesting. 28 pages. Can I? Oh yeah, this is one of those websites where I have to pay to reach it. This is funny in the chat. Someone once said, let straight people have one character. Like, dude, 99.9% of fictional characters are straight. Correct. People get just so pissed if their favorite that they headcanon as straight is just gay. And I'm just like, well, sucks for you. That is also the sentiment if people go onto the tangent of why are gay people so sexy? I hate that they are gay. Like, bruh. Why do people say shit like that? Hate it. And I also want to emphasize on that point that a lot of shit said like that is sometimes voiced by people secretly also being gay. So, I just want to say that. Like when I was 13, I would say probably shit like that, not as gravely mistaken as the sentiments we just read through. And we cannot purchase this. But yeah, no, I just wanted to say that a lot of closeted people might be really weird about gay people, or straight up sometimes end up being homophobic and then later have like a redemption arc because their homophobia sometimes stems from just like internalized self-hatred. So that might happen. I did say some weird things about queer people when I was younger because I didn't fully understand anything about the topic, essentially. So sometimes it's misinformation and people just decide to speak on a topic they're not supposed to, just like the discussion upwards states it's not your place to speak on this. And a lot of young people kind of do that, so I am fully against bullying like 12-year-olds for saying something wrong. Like, you can still respectfully tell them that this is wrong. But like bullying them off a platform and stuff like that is very uncool. I'm just looking for this literature if I can find something. I really want to read this. I'm gonna save this for later, because I have seen that it is really long. Discourse and reality. So I really want to come back to the beginning of the stream a bit, where we talked about it is not your place to speak on this. Essentially, there are people misusing the statement. There are people misusing the statement to silence other people talking on things. When, of course, in all the scenarios we were looking at, it is not your place to speak on something. There are sometimes scenarios where this sentence is used just to silence people again. It is usually an empowering phrase people use. To get people to stop speaking over marginalized groups. But if you speak, it is sometimes difficult. Like, I was citing that example. And in that example, a trans person said something transphobic to other trans people and then apologized, and then people bullied them or tried to bully them off the platform. And it is a really big channel, and they probably have a lot of mental problems. They are already pretty young, and they are also part of the LGBTQ community. So something I will never understand is when LGBTQ people, after someone apologized for their mistake, still go out of the way to try and bully someone with sentence phrases like "it's not your place to speak on this," when like it is not your place to send death threats, hate and bullying to a person just because they made a tiny mistake somewhere along their career. Like, that is still not your place to send them death threats or to tell them to deplatform themselves, which is just a horrible take. Like, that is, we are talking about like a cosplay account. It isn't even a commentary channel like mine is slowly devolving into, but it is more of a cosplay channel, and cosplay channels sometimes are and sometimes aren't very educated on like social and political topics. So expecting them to be right about everything all the time is pretty much impossible. But when I see trans people essentially trying to bully off other trans people off a platform because of one tiny mistake that they actually apologized for, then I think that's fucking toxic behavior. And I went through the comment section, and the comment section was littered with the phrase "it's not your place to speak on this, it's not your place to speak on this," to shut down any kind of support or sympathy for the LGBTQ creator that made the mistake and was getting bullied for that. And while it is only the place to speak of the victims of the situation that have been hurt by the mistake that was made, it is still not their right to then turn into perpetrators and then to go out of the way to essentially pull a reverse card and try to hurt the creator that made a mistake. Like, explaining to them the mistake and getting them to apologize is the best thing you could do. What more do you want? Why do you have to try and deplatform a cosplayer? Why do you have to try and bully them off a platform just for like saying a wrong word once and then apologizing and deleting everything according to that? Like, they already did the best they could. They already tried everything in their right to solve the situation. They tried to be more educated on the topic in the future, which also kind of educated me because I didn't even know that the word that they were using was used as a slur. It is in the beginning of this video, trigger warning by the way. So yeah, I now know that this word is also a slur, which is kind of good to know. And I mean, I have been in the trans community for so long, and this word has been a newer word and a kind of a buzzword term for like 2 or 3 years, and I didn't know that it was used as a slur against a certain part of the LGBTQ community. So I'm very glad that I could educate myself and learn that over witnessing the drama that that other creator was going through. But it is still not cool that they were getting like hate and death threats over this when it was already cleared up. Like, imagine bullying someone into apologizing and being educated, and then they comply to your wishes and they do what you want, and then in the end you still have to go out of your way to like try and be horrible to them about it. Like, if someone already tries to listen to you and tries to be open-minded, why bash them down? This is something I will never understand. So if the sentiment in the video topic is used to suppress the speech of other LGBTQ people, I fucking hate that and I fucking despise that. And I really want to read up on more literature about the theory of power and societal structures and in feminism. If you do not know what the power theory is in feminism, that is the theory that essentially white people garner all the power and cis white men garner all the power, and therefore they have like a privileged position over many other groups, and those other groups suffer from essentially being the oppressed groups. And yeah. Yes. So that's just what I wanted to clear up if that wasn't talked about well enough in the front of this video. And the subject with that cosplayer turned out to be really fucking touchy because people defending them couldn't really defend them because it is not their place to speak. And so the comment section got littered and littered and littered with other trans people being really fucking angry and really fucking toxic towards that creator that made a mistake, essentially. And I have seen many smaller TikTokers make mistakes, making dumb jokes, maybe making a dumb video. I have seen a TikToker making there are a few things where you just do not know that they are racist, and you do them and you end up being racist by doing them. And the best thing you can do in that regard is take a look at that, realize that it has been that way, and then apologizing for it, right? So I have a cosplay friend that was cosplaying from a game, and that game had a character that they were cosplaying, and that character had an outfit skin, and this outfit skin is based on a racist Asian stereotype, and they didn't know that it was based on that racist Asian stereotype. They just looked at the design and thought it looked cool, and essentially with cosplaying that, they were perpetuating that racist Asian stereotype, which they clearly didn't know about, and then they got educated about it, so they took all the content down and apologized, and it was all good, right? And I really hate that people have to go always one step further to try and dox and harass and cancel people and essentially bully them off a platform. This is just not okay, in my opinion. So why do you have to be like this? Essentially, why do other people in the LGBTQ community have to be like this towards other people in the LGBTQ community? And I want to say that there's a lot of person-to-person hate in the people of color and the LGBTQ community, where I have seen black people getting hate from other black people because those black people really want to whitewash themselves, essentially, and be appealing to white people so they get accepted more easily, or so they get goodie points from white people. And they do that by trying to hunt down other black people. And then things happen, like a black creator commenting on another black creator's profile and telling them that you cannot cosplay this character, they are not black, or some kind of fucking bullshit. And also the same thing happens with our long-time favorite, trans medicalists, cringes, and TERFs, parts of the LGBTQ community that just really have it out for other parts of the LGBTQ community. And I do not know why it is so hard for other people to just understand that there are no weird standards of the LGBTQ community, but just people wanting to be accepted and seen as their preferred identity. I really want to look into those and some future stuff. Finding the who's of discourse, that is perfect. We're gonna make just a part 2 of the stream in the future, I think, where I will go more into only talking about discourse, because this one ended up to be very much about trans rights. And this is just my Google search. People have been harassing Japanese people because of a stalker called Raiko. I think you mean Gyaro. This one maybe? Yeah, this one. If you do not know what Gyaru is, okay, you might look at this and think it's blackface. But let me explain before you get Gyaru wrong. Why does Gyaru style exist? Asian cultures essentially have a big racism problem with whitewashing. Asian models are only accepted if they are very pale-skinned. So a counter-fashion trend evolved from this, where people would essentially go to tanning studios and tan to get darker skin as Asian people, to then essentially, let me look up actual Asian people, yeah, to then essentially show off their darker skin color and try to make it a fashion statement to have darker skin color, because in fashion and model magazines it is very much not allowed for Asian people to have darker skin, because their countries tend to be racist towards darker skinned Asians, and they tried to essentially tan themselves and show off their darker skin, and have this very contrast heavy makeup in their face, where like parts would be very lightly shaded, fully on purpose. So usually they tan, so their skin is really that color. They do not like paint themselves to look darker. They tan, so they have that color. Because tanning in Asia is looked down upon culturally. A lot of people get bullied for tanning. If you look into any kind of Asian brands and their products, you will find that their products always contain sunscreen ingredients, which is something that plays into my kind of fashion sense a lot, because I get sunburns in the face very easily. I'm very fair-skinned. I love Asian products for that, actually. I use them because they have a sunscreen factor, and it's really comforting for like my cheekbones, right under my eyes, because then I don't get sunburns. But some people just like try so hard to be fair-skinned or look more fair-skinned in Asia, where it goes to the point where darker-skinned people are seen as essentially they are treated in a racist way. And that's why people created the gyaro fashion style, to combat that by essentially or purposefully tanning their skin and looking darker. And this has stirred up a lot of controversy and a lot of discourse, because while those pictures look more harmless, in my opinion, there are pictures that look like I don't know, that look very much like blackface. And I think that's a black person, right? I cannot tell. Sometimes you cannot tell. Sometimes people wear so heavy makeup that you cannot tell. But if this is like a black person, then they are probably doing the gyaro makeup style because they want to show off that it is okay and also natural to have dark skin. And that dark skin can be very fucking beautiful. And they're making a statement with that they purposefully do not want their skin to be lightened. Let's just also look at the fashion. As you can see, gyaro fashion often includes people with tan skin, people that go on the darker side, or people that are naturally of a darker Asian skin color. Because of course there are dark-skinned Asian people, those exist. And pretending like all Asians have to be white is racism, essentially. And it is very difficult for Americans to understand the sentiment, because just like it is hard for them to understand that this is not like painted on and that this is not blackface. But yeah, there's heavy discourse about the topic essentially now, because I do not know where that sentence was going. Criticism. Here we have it. Ganguru tan face. Again, one of the readings of the character in face. Guru, one of the readings of the character or for black. Before anybody jumps to the conclusion that this means blackface, Japanese have a very loose relationship with colors. Green vegetables are blue vegetables in Japanese. If a traffic light turns green, Japanese say it's blue. When you get a tan, your friends compliment you on your black skin. With that out of the way, adults always criticize young kids. With these girls, it's really easy. In Japan, there's heavy emphasis on fitting in. That is not because some oppressive culture by a necessity. You can't have this amount of individualists all doing their own thing in one tiny place. Conformity is prized. Look at normal Tokyo street. See how nobody stands out? Japanese love that. I have come to appreciate it. No loud colors, mostly black hair, no wild fashion statements. Women wear subtle makeup. It's just a face. No girl is going to dress like that for more than a year or two. Oof. What the fuck? What the fuck is that blog post? What the fuck? No! They eventually grow out of it. Yeah, shut the fuck up, I would say. No, that's not what I want to hear. Ah, problematic. Come on, load. Pictures are broken. You know what's also kind of funny, or also I would say rather sad? It is when you go to TikTok and you look for the tag Asian fishing, you will find a lot of people that just like tell other people that they should stop Asian fishing, but the person that is supposedly Asian fishing is actually Asian. And that is kind of the mistaken identity thing that is happening a lot with people that are mixed, because mixed people sometimes get bullied for being mixed. Because if you are mixed out of two races and you can ask people that are mixed, there is a high chance that you might be rejected by either of those two faculties that you essentially belong to. And I think that's also kind of what fashion statements like this want to combat. So those are just all of those. And yeah, Ganguro is it. That's it, yeah. I love Japanese fashion as well. I wear a lot of Japanese styled clothing. Yeah, as you can see right here, it gets misrepresented and taken out of context a lot. Yeah, then here someone talks about the tan being unhealthy for the skin. Yeah, and then it's just like evil Reddit people being like Reddit people. You know, people on Reddit are really fucking mean. This blog post seems to be older. Let's go to TikTok maybe. And then look up the tag there, because you can probably find stuff there. I can't look up hashtags or what? Or can I? No, can't. Why? Why can't I look up fucking hashtags on TikTok? It's so weird that I can only find like... Let's try this. TikTok. Yeah, if you go to my For You page on TikTok, you will find a lot of Danganronpa related stuff. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, people are literally debating if their skin is too black or not. And black people really do not feel good about it. So, I know it's not meant to be racist, but it makes me so uncomfortable coming from a black person. So, I mean, like, we do have to respect what black people say about their own culture. We cannot talk over them. Yeah, people are essentially saying that. Essentially.
Oli, si no estás muy familiarizada con el ganguro es una subcultura.
A style of gyaru called ganguro became popular in the mid-1990s.
So it's a protest against colorism. Exactly. There's such an emphasis in Japan to be pale, use whitening creams, and stay out of the sun, as being tan is considered a masculine trait. Mistakes Americans make. Assuming everyone knows about their culture and that everything created outside the US is inspired by them. I'm sorry, Americans. I'm sorry. It is the truth. Not Americans thinking everything revolves around them. Okay, but was the first girl not doing blackface? Blackface doesn't even exist out of the USA as well. That is so not true. That is so not true. I'm sorry, but blackface does exist out of the USA. Like, there are other colonizer countries, like people in... You can ask people in France and Europe. Definitely blackface exists here. And definitely people in theaters dressed up as black people when they were white people. So yes, it does exist. I'm sorry. American people are obsessed with race. The racism in the comments, yeah. I hope I'm not wrong, but I think I had to tell a bunch of people about the style and what the name actually translates to. They wouldn't listen and kept calling it blackface. This is, for me, this is such a weird take. The entire gyaro thing is such a weird take, and I cannot fully speak on it, but I do not know whose place it is to speak on this. I cannot even tell you whose place it is to speak on this. Like, Japanese people can probably make their stance on this and explain what it is like in their culture and what they want to express with that fashion statement, but it is probably not something you should pull off as a white person on the streets of the United States, because that would pretty much be considered blackface. Essentially, if you tan your skin to the degree where it is literally a black person and then just paint it darker with foundation, that's kind of I kind of understand why people get very uncomfortable with this, but I also kind of have my problems with the argument of but it is only like this in Japan. Like, while you can mostly see people dressing like this in Japan, that doesn't mean that Japanese people are, first of all, exclusive to Japan. There are Japanese people practicing fashion statements in other countries. There are Japanese people living in China. There are Japanese people living in Korea. There are Japanese people living all around the world, and even in the US, dressing like this. So if you dress like this in the USA, is it going into the territory of blackface or not? I cannot say, and I cannot really argue with anything right here. I can only try to educate myself. But if I look at all those comments, it's pretty mixed opinion, and it kind of confuses me. I mean, but it was absolutely blackface when white American girls were copying it. Yes, I can fully agree with that, but it is still coming from like a white dude. So, tans are not supposed to be that dark, though. Like, I think the image I paused it on looks very much like blackface.
Characterized by a very dark tan, bleached or dyed hair.
Some of them look more like tan, but some of them look like
makeup around the eyes and highlighting the nose, big false lashes, and super long nails with large decorations. Ganguro would wear bright colors, large platform shoes with many accessories. Ganguro even evolved into 3 substyles: Yamamba, Mamba, and Bamba. Popular brands include Alba Rosa. Although the style has mostly died out, some Ganguro remain today. They are often compared to looking like mountain witches from Japanese folklore. Contrary to some beliefs that the style is racist or blackface, the style actually
So, contrary to many beliefs that the style is racist or blackface, the style actually began as a rebellion towards the Japanese beauty standards of pale skin, black hair, natural makeup, and modest clothing. Yeah, there you have it. That's what I think. This person is probably Japanese. We can look it up, because, like, are they Japanese, or are they just like reporting on Japanese things? Because if this is a white person saying this, I am kind of icky again, you know? This is coming from a black American, but I understand why some are uncomfortable. Celestia Ludenberg, are you a black American? I do not know. Follow for Japan content, but I do not know if that person is Japanese. If that is them, that is probably them, right? Is that them? Are they like a white person, or are they like... Like, is that a white person? Is that an Asian person? I do not know. I do not know.
Began as a rebellion towards the Japanese beauty standards of pale skin, black hair, natural makeup, and modest clothing. The YouTuber Natalia Natchan has made a video discussing this topic, which
is Ganguro racist?
I would recommend to...
But why is it a white person speaking on the subject again? Can we get like a black creator or a Japanese creator speaking about this and not like a white person interested in Japanese culture? Because that would be the same as if I made assumptions about that. I can only like read the comments and show them off.
Go and check out if you're more interested. Thanks for watching. A style of gyaru called ganguro became popular in the mid-1990s.
Yeah, no.
I'm shocking facts about ganguro.
Now we have a Japanese person talking about it. Yes, we're gonna listen to that Japanese person right now.
I'm shocking facts about ganguro. It's one of the most unusual subcultures in Japan with tan skin, crazy makeup, and bleached hair. 4, this originated as a rebellion against traditional Asian beauty. 3, ganguro has a resemblance to kabuki, the ghosts and demons. 2, Jinx and Pokemon is said to be a parody of this trend. Lady Gaga is currently under fire for her ganguro-inspired look. Is this blackface? I'm shocking facts about ganguro. It's one of the most unusual...
It's not blackface, it's just an orange tan. Says an Asian person. Like some people really treasure that style, especially like Asian people. Would it matter if they were Japanese or not? Yes, it does matter to me because I do not want to speak as a white person over the voices of people that can actually determine if that is racist. Like, if this hurts black people or not, it is something black people can decide upon, you know? And if this hurts or if this is meant to be racist or not, this is practiced by Asian culture, so Asian cultures can talk about their intentions with that fashion style. I'm personally European. I can only read up about this, and I'm also white. So yeah, I can't just like research it for you all. But like, you're telling me it's Trump. I love Japan and didn't know this. And here someone says, I know about it, but it seems weird to me. I would interpret that emoji as weird. But it's culture, I guess, so it bothers me at the same time and it doesn't. I like to view it as something against colorism. It has the right spirit, but I don't know about the outcome. That kind of, yeah.
Hey yo, gyaru check. Hey yo, gyaru check. Hey yo, gyaru check. Hey yo, get
Wait. No, Junko is something different. And I know what word you are referring to, but I do not know, I think she is the ultimate Gyaru. Wait, just look it up. Because Gyaru can be used as a term, yeah, Chokokokyu no Gyaru, which can be translated to the ultimate fashionista in some kind of ways. Where is it? Talent? Yeah, here. The ultimate Gyaru. And Gyaru can be a term for several different fashion. Wait, I think I have it. Do I? No. I hate how it does that. No! Stop! Stop. Don't make music for a second. Gyaru fashion. Gyaru fashion is just like, it can be any kind. There's also, no, wait. There's also this. Hime Gyaru is just like a princess look, essentially. But if you are talking about only the dark skin tan version, that is just like the Gangaru version. That is just like the very the emphasis on the dark skin and this essentially. While there can be any kind of word in front of the term Gyaru, because Gyaru is just a certain type of fashion. There's also Harajuku Gyaru, which is just like street fashion of Harajuku. And if you type that in, you can find like all kinds of results. I mean, this guy is literally, I do not know what he's wearing, a lot of stuff essentially. Oh yeah, this is kind of representative of Harajuku fashion. Yeah, and Decora, Harajuku, and Visual Kei can look like this. And all of those are also Gyaru types. Which is so sad that is. I had this thing as a screensaver for some period of time. Oh my god, I really need to recreate my older Gyaru looks where I had really long hair and was like dressing in those Decora styled stuff, but I really need to do it with like my short hair that I have now, with like a cute boyish short hair look. That would rock. That would be really cool. I could kind of combine this with Ouija fashion a bit. If you don't know what Ouija fashion is, Ouija fashion is essentially Lolita-based fashion, but male-oriented. So if you have like Lolita dresses, they sometimes have like a masculine-oriented version, and this is just like the entirety of my closet. Like all of my stuff looks like this. I basically look like this. I go out on the street looking like this. I have so many outfits in that type. I have so many stockings and so many of those. Yeah. That is straight up my fashion type that I'm wearing. It's just like Lolita fashion, but like masculine-oriented. Or at least oriented around, I love this. Oh, and since we are already at it, since the topic has already derailed so far, I have to show you my favorite piece, which is this one. That you can have it. Like the fog on Baker Street is like, if I see this somewhere, I would literally use my savings to buy this. I know I'm a horrible person, but like this is the most beautiful outfit I have seen in all of Lolita fashion, and I really want to own it. And sadly, I did not get around to owning it at release, but this is so pretty. And it is inspired by Sherlock Holmes. I love that outfit. Sadly, the pictures on my desktop aren't loading really well, but like, explain to me that this is not hot. This is hot. I would seek an organ for it. Yes, same. And I love that it has... Oh. Wait, is this like a secondhand sale? No, it is. I do not know why I'm so obsessed with like the weird detective look that we have ongoing. And if I own this one day, I will absolutely put on a Shuichi cosplay for that. I'm absolutely gonna do that. Like, imagine that, but on Shuichi. That would be so cool. Like, just give him the classic detective look. I stand that shit. I'm weird, I know. Weirdly specific. But he would look cool in this. Or like just the pants there. Those are cool as well. I love that it's JSK. I love that it has like the fitting top and bottom part. That is just so cool to me. Do not know how to explain it. Also just the jackets. If I own that outfit one day, I'm definitely gonna cosplay it. And I also fucking love, I have to, since if there is a character wearing any type of Ouija outfit, the chances of me cosplaying that character go up by like 300%. So, yeah, I have made some. That is also why I like the Ciel Phantom Hive outfit so much. But Ciel is just like, oh, I need to show this just because we are on the topic of very cool. I'm gonna go onto my private Instagram for this actually. No, go away. And we're gonna change. Yeah. Come on. You can do it. I believe in you. Not now. And we're gonna look at pitch black. And there must be pictures of that. I have to show you that. No, yes. Is it that? That one is. I think it's that one. Yes, it is. Now, am I dumb? Or maybe this one? No. Where is it? So, Rich Black is a Black Butler exhibition. And someone posted close-up pictures of the outfits that were displayed at the Rich Black edition. And just look at the drape in the back of this one. This is so pretty. This is an outfit exclusively designed for Ciel Phantom Hive. And just like look at the outfit. Look at how detailed that is. That is a cosplayer's dream. I love that. Look at the beautiful drape. Love it. It's so pretty. I hope you can see that close enough on my stream. But I have seen better images of that. But in case you wanna look that one up, you can just like type in Rich Black somewhere. Maybe you can also find on Google. Exhibition. This is just like a Black Butler exhibition that is currently going on in Japan. And I want... Come on. Internet isn't loading. But I'm trying to give you a good quality image of the beautiful, beautiful outfits. Yeah, no, we do not get a good photo. Sadness, very sad. Come on. Pretty. Seeing those outfits in display cases makes me so nostalgic because it reminds me of the time when I was able to go back to conventions and people would actually go up on stage and perform for the numerous cosplay tournaments, or is it called a tournament, like and they would have really, really good acting and really pretty clothes, and I would sit in the audience and like stare at them and be fascinated by how well they can act and how well they can dance and sue. I would be like, yeah, I'm just doing really stupid TikTok dances, like look at my shit. Like essentially I do stupid TikTok dances. Like, wait, this one.
Call me when you want, call me when you need, call me in the morning, I'll be on the way. Call me when you want, call me when you need, call me out by your name, I'll be on the way. Like, call me when you want.
Yeah, that's the kind of content you can expect from me. I wish I could sue better. That would be so fucking cool. But I can't. Because I don't. So yeah, to make a conclusion on this one before we move on, I really want to say that I'm fucking unsure if like Gyaru is racist or if it isn't, and I think we would need a thorough explanation on this by a black creator or a Japanese creator, and if I can find sources on this, I would probably want to look into those sources. I was looking at your TikTok when you had gone on to it. I wish I could sue in general. Yeah, I can sue, but like only with my hands and a functioning sewing machine, and my sewing machine isn't functioning, so I decided to sue an entire Kokichi cosplay with my hands, and I was just like going at it and being like, okay, I do not care if this, like, you put it under your sewing machine, you press the pedal and you do like one straight line and then it is done. But like that's not how anything works here. Like I do that with my hands. Oh, why? Anyways, I think this is probably good enough to end the stream because the stream is already like 4 hours long. So if you have anything that you want to know about the topic, you can put it in chat since there are a few people active in chat. Farewell, I really enjoyed this stream. Yeah, there will be more streams in the future. Maybe I'm even gonna go and stream like another stream with a different topic right after this one. So if you just want to be into the next stream, I'm probably gonna be here. But I really want to end this stream on this topic because I do not want the topic to be derailed too far. I take that it is a stream and that I also react to the chat, and then of course we talk about the things the chat also wants to talk about because it is a stream and it is an open discussion panel, so that is good. But like I'm gonna end this stream and start a new stream, and we're gonna have Sylvian in the corner telling us trans rights, and that is also kind of cute that I had the idea. So thank you for watching, right? And yeah, thank you.